It is completely unreasonable.
It's not his house.
Imagine. And yet...
No, it's not his house. No, in all sincerity, what does he know? He probably has never built a house.
And the way they behave. Now, Kerry, I mean, between midnight and 4 a.m., surely, those are just 4 hours. Just give me some more time. Surely. Ask me what happened.
These guys don't ask what happened. So you know what happened?
It's okay.
So you're supposed to pay and you didn't pay. That's what happened.
That's it. As far as they're concerned, that's it.
So essentially, you're saying, if we were to compare one agent,
yes,
agent was Rekali.
That's what they are. They are a tax collection agent.
Actually, this isn't one of those situations where you can say you're giving agents a bad name, because policemen are also agents.
Bas.
Of late, they become health agents.
Whenever there's an agent somewhere, an intermediary between you and the good things.
Man, but problems await you.
Oh, yes. You know about that, Nduh, right?
About what?
Whenever there's an intermediary between you and the good things, you always hate that agent.
Yeah, I do.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
We haven't asked you how you are.
I knew it was going to come. So I was being patient.
Good.
Yeah.
You're well?
I am. How are you?
Yeah, very well.
Good.
Yes.
Morning, CT.
Good morning, Nduh. Life?
Life. You know Nduh means life.
No.
I'm telling you, Nduh means life.
And I am grateful that Nduh means life, so I will repeat it twice.
Nduh.
Intonation. Nduh is Nduh. The second one is the question.
Oh, right, okay. Nzuri sana. Good heavens.
So how do you say, what's good? Ezioku.
Ezioku is truth.
Truth? Ezioku is truth.
Bundu. Truth is life.
Truth is life.
Yes.
So Bu is.
Yes. Very good. Well done, Eric.
So,
Ibu fine.
Oh, God.
me, I bu good.
all of you are not serious. Move, Joe.
Ezioku, you Ezioku Bu.
Well, you boo Ezuku.
Hey, where's Tom Japani to save me from these two?
Wow. Welcome to the show. Today we'll have quite a number of discussions. Right here for that, we'll have two interesting guests at the 7 o'clock and the 8 o'clock hour. And we'll be looking at various aspects. So what shall we be discussing at 8?
Now, how about you caught me off guard?
8 o'clock.
You be confused.
Ezioku.
Well, in this case, actually, it is Boo who is confused.
How you throw questions at me like that?
Surely.
Ezioku Bundu.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with 7. 7 o'clock, we shall be discussing a very controversial bill that has been published by the Nakuru Senator, Susan Keheka. And it's going through the third reading in the Senate. Mm-hmm. This is the, what's it called? The Reproductive Healthcare Bill.
Yeah.
And it seeks to address very many issues that have really gotten the nostrils of religious leaders flaring. Like right up there. Completely red up. And then,
fire.
oh yes. And then at 8 o'clock, we'll be talking about the forgotten impact of COVID-19 on the people with disabilities in Kenya. We've had this conversation before, but it's a forgotten impact, and we have to keep reminding people it's a forgotten impact, because we talk about everything else as if the people who are living with disabilities are just able to do everything like the able-bodied people. So we'll have a guest here. She's a disability rights activist, Wanja Maina. She'll be coming in at 8 o'clock, and that's what we'll be discussing. Okay? Keep it right here for that.
Is it 8 or 9?
8.
8, okay. Very good.
That's why it threw me off.
That's
it was 9 o'clock. Do you see now?
Okay.
There's always an explanation for
There's always
everything. This is
something.
why you need to talk to KRA.
Yeah.
Properly.
Yeah. So, we shall begin where we always begin. Fellow Kenyans.
Eyebrows are raising and everybody now is scared once again. 418 cases yesterday in Kenya bringing the total caseload to 13,771 and 238 deaths yesterday. There was a bit of a slip up from the Ministry of Health where they told us that 19 deaths occurred yesterday. And we had CAS Rashid Aman very quickly come over that to say that there were 19 because everybody went into a state of alarm that there were actually 19 deaths recorded. But that changed. And yes,
4.
yes, from 19 to 4. So I really wonder where that mistake came from.
4 as in 1,
1,
2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
But
the other
it was
one is
announcement was 19,
initially-
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 19.
There are 19 there.
But it was a mistake,
No.
according to CAS Rashid Aman.
No. 19. There are 19.
And he was very quick to say, because obviously as soon as
There
he
are
announced
questions
it,
because there was a disparity between that 19 and the total tally. So if we add 19 to yesterday's number of total deaths,
it
and
should
the
have been
total
way
number
above
that you're giving us today,
238.
Let them do the arithmetic, but it's 19.
it'll get there.
You know something? Whether it was 4 or 2 or 3 or 19, the truth of the matter is that COVID is killing people, as in it's responsible for deaths that need not have occurred if it didn't exist.
Right.
It's a reality that we must come to terms with as quickly as possible. It is good if indeed there is a lower death rate in the country. It is a good thing.
Yeah.
But if the reality is that the death rate is high, then we should face that reality.
As well.
Yes.
True.
Very true.
All right. Well, looking around the world, almost over a third of the cases are in the United States. 3,961,429 cases in the US, with 143,834 deaths so far. Brazil also, cases rising rapidly, 2,121,645 with 80,251 deaths. India also continues to record high levels of cases, 1,154,917. And Russia, 777,486, with South Africa following closely behind. Well, not closely. With 373,628 cases and 5,173 deaths. We saw the burial of Sindiwa Mandela yesterday, on the same day as Nelson Mandela Day. And South Africans were, thinking many things at the same time now, saying, all right, it seems that COVID, it seemed with the fact that it would affect somebody who you or infect somebody who you thought was untouchable, now became a reality for many South Africans. And it was interesting because this is what was covered in the news, and people said, perhaps we need to be a little bit more serious about how we take care of ourselves. It's interesting that brought
The statement that you've made, why would they be untouchable?
Well, because of celebrity status per se, the divide between the wealthy and the not so wealthy.
So you're saying that
reality.
there's an accepted norm that diseases only focus on those who are economically disadvantaged.
Yeah.
There are diseases that are already labeled poor man's diseases, for example. We know those. We know
Those
those,
that kill people in mass, those are poor man's
Those are poor
diseases.
man's diseases. But
Actually,
that's why this one is different.
No, I do agree with you, Eric, because if you look at even the plague, if you look at some of the diseases that have wiped out millions of people, most of it happened in places where people were congested.
Yes,
And it
shanty
came with
towns,
what you call
slums.
the Industrial Revolution.
Yep.
People moved into town, the urban drift, and there were large numbers in a confined space. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where the notoriety began.
Exactly. With COVID, it's a totally different story, however. And just coming back
Democratic.
Yes.
Yes, it is. It goes to State House, it goes to Parliament, it goes to villages,
Goes to the media.
goes to the media.
Even here now, we saw that some individuals now come out and say, yes, I am COVID positive. And more and more.
It was a good move by Jeff Koinange.
I think so. I think that
wish
that
him
was
all
a
the
good
best,
idea
I
for
mean.
him to do that.
Yeah.
And what that has done is that it has spurred other people then to either, number one, go get tested, number two, then be a lot more cautious then about their behavior and activities, which I guess at the end of the day is the reason why you would want to declare your COVID status.
Yep.
Mexico still continues to receive a lot of cases. In the last 7 hours, 5,172 cases with 301 deaths, just under 10%, lower than it has been in a couple of days. The Southern and Central American countries continue to receive a beating from COVID. Australia still recording what they would deem as high numbers in the last couple of days, 359 in the last 24 hours. And they continue to see this. So high numbers in some parts of the world, staved off in other parts, but still the drift is that countries that would have reached their peak by now are seeing a surge. And this is not just in Kenya, it's global. So
it's a big thing to actually just look at. Well, let's keep fighting COVID from out of the world. Good morning. It's coming up to 6:15. Let's take a look at the weather, and then we shall be looking at the newspaper headlines shortly. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. City Muga is in the house. Nduh Okoh is in the house. And Eric Latiff is on the chair.
Ha! The house is in the chair, or the chair is in the house.
...24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, it's mostly cloudy in Nairobi this morning at 13 degrees. Mostly cloudy conditions for parts of this Tuesday. Highs of 22 and lows of 12. Njeri's cloudy at 13 degrees. A chance of a sprinkle later on with highs of 20 and lows of 13. It's cloudy in Nakuru at 13 degrees. Thunderstorms forecasted for later in the day with highs of 20 and lows of 13. Eldoret this morning is mostly cloudy at 12. Thunderstorms also forecasted here later with highs of 18 and lows of 12. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 19 degrees with highs of 24 and lows of 18 and showers in the afternoon. Kakamega is mostly cloudy this morning. It won't be later though because the rains will come down with a high of 22 and lows of 16. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa at 23 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 23 with a chance of rain later in the day. Partly cloudy conditions in Malindi at 24 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 today. And in Kampala, stepping out of Kenya, it's mostly cloudy at 18 degrees. Showers expected for later with highs of 24 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 22 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 21. Taking a look then into Johannesburg, where it's 8 degrees and mostly sunny. Sunny conditions to go through out most of the day with highs of 21 and lows of 3. In Lagos, it's clear skies at 24 degrees. It'll change later though, cloudy conditions with rain expected later, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Looking at London, 14 degrees, clear skies, highs of 22 and lows of 13 with cloudy conditions later. And in Paris, it's clear skies at 16 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 13. And wrap things up in New York. It's a very warm night at 31 degrees. We'll see highs of 34 and lows of 24.
15 after 6. So let's start with the newspaper headlines. Many interesting ones, right? Let's start with you, CT. What do you find interesting as you look?
What I find particularly interesting is the apology by Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja. I read it. I went back into the annals of history to try and determine whether any politician in the history of this country has actually ever come out and apologized as openly. Because this is an open apology. There's no ifs and buts, but however...
It was political, but
No. Simple. I was on the wrong. Actually, it's in the wrong. And I am sorry. I have resigned from the Senate COVID-19 ad hoc committee and that I've been chairing. I was outside my house past 9 p.m., which is after curfew hours. I will be abiding by the law. No one is above the law. That last bit is a bit political. But I am sorry. I have broken the law. There's a bit that he missed.
I will face the consequences.
Yes.
He did that as well. It wasn't missed.
Yes.
He said, I'll go to court tomorrow and I'll accept my punishment.
Yes, that's what he said. I was going by what?
What's written.
Still, if you listen to what the man said, I was actually touched. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth about it. Bottom line, the man apologized openly and stated what he had done wrong and stated why. Well, they didn't really go into the why, but he then... but he was clear about being able to take his medicine like a good boy because he was clear about it. Yes, go to court, take his medicine, and then wait for the outcome. Even resigned from the committee. Now that one I said, resigned.
The hours between sometime on Saturday and yesterday, something profound must have happened.
And I think it is a good thing.
The whales spat him out on his way to Nineveh. Whatever. He saw the
scales
lights.
fell off his eyes.
Something happened.
The
Because I
Damascus
remember the
experience.
tweet. Remember the tweet on Saturday morning?
I
I wasn't arrested. Show me the OB.
And then
all
this
those things.
yesterday.
The establishment that the cultural establishment that the fine gentleman was at, I don't think was a tea house.
No?
My sources tell me that the predominant libation there is not tea or
Right.
equivalent beverages.
Okay.
No. The fermented variety of beverages, fruit,
Is what they were partaking of.
etc.,
Right.
grain, but fermented,
Right.
distilled in abundance. Now, when you've been partaking of those,
So it reached its peak on
Yes.
Saturday morning.
by morning when someone is asking you, you cannot say it is him who is speaking.
So
The speech has been assisted. But now thereafter,
There's a song for that.
yes, but
Blame it on that.
thereafter we are now clear. Now, the speeches that followed, I actually don't care whether he had said it even 3 days later. That he has apologized.
that it's something for
That,
the books, really. It's something for the books.
He
because
won the hearts of many, but also the kind of backlash that he was receiving on Saturday. As opposed to any other politician, the kind of backlash that he was receiving was, we thought you are different.
It didn't help that just a few months before, though, that he had done this video with his children, talking about safety precautions
safety
to take for
precautions.
COVID and all of that. It didn't really help. And that's what people were pegging. The backlash was pegged greatly on this, what he had said before.
Actually, you've got to the heart of the matter, and this is really the reality of it. Tell me he who is without sin.
Yep.
There you go.
Start from the president,
Cast the first stone.
go down to former prime minister. Just keep choosing them. Former
Everybody.
presidents,
In fact,
tell me.
throw a stone and
But
it's likely
how
to
many
land.
have turned back and said, I'm
sorry, how many?
None.
Yes.
That's the
Every
thing.
politician that we have in this country is a human being.
Yep.
Okay? So the frailties that other human beings have who are not as notable as them will visit them from time to time.
Yep.
Yes. And that to me is a good thing because it tells me, whew, at
He's
least
human.
We
we
know they're
have
human
human beings
beings.
managing our affairs. If these people didn't make mistakes, they would not be able to align their thinking to the mistakes that arise in others. They would not even be good lawmakers. You need to have feet of clay to understand how many others also have feet of clay.
True.
This has done leaps and bounds for him, if you
And
ask
that's
me.
why the headline in the Standard this morning is The Curse From holding political rallies to night parties and selective enforcement of the law, politicians and cabinet secretaries are behaving badly as the pandemic ravages the country. Given page 6, but also with this very nice, immaculately dressed Sakaja on the photo, these other photos here of Bungoma Governor Wycliffe Wangamati, who is not wearing a face mask.
No, but he's wearing specs.
Or even holding a face mask on his hand.
But he's wearing
nothing.
specs.
So he's wearing specs. Okay, so that'll cover his eyes. Kakamega's Wycliffe Oparanya, who's wearing a face mask. Devolution's Eugene Omalo, who's wearing a face mask. And Wafula Munyenyi, the Kandui MP, who's wearing a face mask. But they are walking as if the face mask is it. And then the photo below that is Boni Halwale, who's wearing a face mask on his chin.
It's a good place to have it.
After he saw what he had done, after he had handed over some bucket of water to a senior police officer.
Yeah.
So, bebe basi.
That thing was a 20-liter.
I mean,
Unfortunately, it appeared as if he was throwing the water at the police.
He was throwing it.
He was basically just handing over. He was like...
He was he was handing it
in
over
this idea.
at a high velocity.
Yeah,
handing
high
it
speed.
over from, arm's length away, thrusting it forward.
Yeah, and
No,
this
they
idea.
wanted to make sure the guy gets it
Yes.
up close.
Yeah.
And that he did.
It's like, toss me that pyro.
And some of it spilled on the fine
Yeah,
gentleman.
the fine gentleman.
Not
But
intended.
that clip, if I'm to take it to be the true clip, I must say, Mweshimiwa is very swift on his feet.
The guy is really...
Did you see how confused the cop was? He
Is
wondered,
this guy actually trying to pour the
do I,
water on
pick,
me?
do I pick the bucket? Do I give it back to him? What do I do?
Do I dry my shirt? No. Let me chase him. The guy had gone. Quicksilver.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Another interesting one.
Well,
There are very many headlines on
today,
the Standard front page. Yeah?
crazy. Where have the COVID-19 billions gone? Okay, so that's on page 4 and 5 of the Standard today. Almost 300 billion from public coffers and donors has already been spent on COVID-19. On the ground, though, there is little to show for these billions. Lack of accountability, corruption and theft of the much-needed personal protective... It's really crazy that we have to even say it, but okay. Protective equipment may be the biggest stumbling blocks in the country's fight against COVID-19. These, coupled with inaction by county governments outside the cities of Mombasa and Nairobi in executing the simplest of requirements by the coronavirus task force, continue to expose many to a disease that is projected, to infect more than 41 million Kenyans in 2021. Kenyans today find themselves between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, the pandemic is spreading through the nation at rates never seen before. As this goes on, the government is offering little faith in its handling of billions. So we go on to this narrative. However, looking at the money that has been donated to Kenya, a breakdown of the donations from the World Bank and what the money was to do. 847,251,900 was supposed to be for medical supplies and equipment. 875,972,000 was supposed to be for response, capacity building, and training. 1,587,640,000 was supposed to be for quarantine, isolation, and treatment centers.
To do what? Construct? Feed people? What?
While you're housing them, in quarantine, pay for their upkeep, food, etc., and medicine in isolation, and these treatment centers. Okay. Shall I go on?
Yes.
Okay, if you must.
338,760,000 for medical waste disposal. 496,005,900 was supposed to be for community discussion and information outreach. 1 billion shillings was for the ensuring of the availability of safe blood and blood products. I know CT is going to enjoy that one. Billion, not million.
Yeah.
Project implementation and monitoring, 174,370,200. 38 billion shillings is the amount that was released to the Ministry of Health by Treasury. 5 billion is the amount released by the Ministry of Health to counties. 2.8 billion is the amount raised by the Kenya COVID-19 Fund. 176 billion is the revenue government has foregone to cushion the economy from effects of the pandemic. 157 billion is the amount used to cushion the economy through various social support programs. Other key figures, 526, the number of infected health workers. So the amount of money that has come in has just topped 300 billion shillings.
Where is it? That's the question, right?
That's the question. Where has it gone? This money has come in, no doubt about that. This is not a matter of we're waiting for them to disperse. This money has actually come into the country. So the report is stating that Kenya and Kenyans have not felt the effect of these funds in the fight against COVID.
And some donations that have come specifically as items, investigations are showing that PPE received from donors was often marked as urgent, giving the clerical employees at the government clearing agency very little time to take the donations through the normal clearance procedure. Because of this, most of these donations being marked as government to government never spent time with us. They were often cleared on the same day and moved on to the receiving agency. This is a source familiar with the protocols around the COVID-19 donations who was saying this. The government clearing agency is responsible for clearing and forwarding all government imports and exports, besides handling sea passages for expatriates. All those protocols of inspection and mandatory cataloguing were bypassed for the PPEs. So those PPEs have come, urgent, gone. And then the amount of monies that we are talking about here, I mean, if you say that capacity building and training and response gets 875 million shillings, and then there's an extra 496 million shillings going to community discussion and information outreach.
What's the difference between the two is your question.
And then
There's a difference.
What's the difference, City?
Well, it's in the labeling, you see. No, sincerely, if you look at this list, it tells you about the thorough details that our bureaucrats go into in justifying, and because they know when you mention community, it will get you some funding, because you're talking about outreach, you're talking about training, you're talking about a very serious preventative approach to this particular problem. Okay? So even if it looks like it's similar, just one word inserted in,
Community, one is different.
it changes completely.
Capacity building
Yes.
is one, and this is now they'll talk about training the doctors and healthcare
See,
workers.
changed.
All right.
Velocity and velocity.
Yes, exactly.
And then this
You
one
understand?
is community what? Outreach.
Yes.
Community discussion and
Yes.
information outreach.
Yes.
Okay.
Meaning, this is where now you have actually planned and you've budgeted for ensuring that even the furthest corners of the country, that's the message you send.
To the villages.
Villages
and you tell
everywhere,
them,
these
"Kuna
remote
COVID."
places, that's why there's village that people get to understand, and you're talking to them and you're having a discourse and you're having dialogue. It goes even beyond public participation. That's the theory.
Ah, good one. Good one. It's actually, it justifies spending almost 500 million shillings.
Yes. If you do the division and you ask yourself, you're talking about dividing this in 47 counties. It's a decent amount to get the message. That the only thing is now, when you test that the proof of
Practically.
this particular pudding, you say,
Kwa
okay,
ground.
Let's
kwa
audit
ground.
it.
All
Kwa
right,
ground.
your pesa imeenda. How much do you think it costs, say, to build a room that qualifies to be a ward in a hospital? It's only the first room that has 4 walls. The others have 3 walls.
3.
Yes, okay? And usually there's no ceiling. It's just a high roof and then ventilation. So, now, let's take it at a high cost of, say, 200,000 shillings or 300,000 shillings, okay? The counties were each given the equivalent of 100 plus, 106, 108 million shillings directly. It's 5 billion amount released by the Ministry of Health to counties.
Yep.
Yes.
The government has had difficulties understanding where that money went, because when they ask, there is a department, the Ministry of Health, that deals with infrastructure. They say, okay, we gave you this money. It was for COVID response. What? Tell us what you've put aside for COVID. You said you wanted isolation. Okay, show us this isolation place that you've built.
Couldn't.
That one. Say, no, but this one has existed for the last 40 years.
We painted it. We had to.
Yeah. Gave it a facelift.
All right, fine. Equipment. Ooh, and by the way, if you look at this list, there's another funding specifically for equipment.
Oh, yes.
And the equipment is not Nairobi.
Oh,
It's
yes.
county.
And you'll find
County-wide.
there is another budget again for maintenance. It's different. if you know government funding, believe me, they are very specific. Hii ni ya kujenga, hii ni ya kumaintain. Very, very specific. But it's all gone, and all we have are the structures that we've had since independence.
This country. 27 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic. And then continue with...
It's looking good this Tuesday morning on, most roads so far. On Thika Road coming down into the CBD, I'm not going to have many problems there whatsoever. And on Mombasa Road already, it's looking very, very clear. I don't think we'll get stuck anywhere so far. So it's light traffic already being witnessed in most areas this morning, and likely to get clogged up in a short while, but we'll let you know exactly where that might happen. Coming into the CBD from Thika Road, however, right around the Pagani underpass and then leading towards the Globe Cinema roundabout, very slow for some reason at this point, but it'll pick up, I'm sure. So we also look then on the Thika Road outbound. For some reason, there was an accident on that road this morning, so you want to be very careful if you're approaching that area. Inbound, not too much in terms of drama. Coming off Mombasa Road and getting to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, it's very, very easy right now, but we know that's going to change later. So please let us know what you see. We'll see how that irons out, or may get a little bit clogged later. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. We want to know what you see, and we want to try and make it easy to move around this Tuesday morning.
Okay, 24 minutes to 7. Other headlines in the paper this morning. Set to fail, the president's multi-billion court vows from Huduma Namba Uhuru's pet projects have run into legal headwinds.
Pure golden sound and good talk. 94.4 Spice FM.
All the projects that have been launched by the government and have ended up in court, one way or the other. There's a challenge. 61 billion shillings lapsed project.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
4,600 Lamu fishermen, 1.7 billion. 10 billion shillings. Case before the Supreme Court, it's a new currency tender. SGR project, 380 billion shillings, is in court. Huduma number, 6 billion shillings. Court of Appeal and the Labour Court. The coal power plant, 200 billion shillings. And then the Ethiopia-Kenya power transmission, 136 billion shillings. It's before several courts in the country. Now, these are the legal battles that are haunting the president's multi-billion legacy projects. There are several issues surrounding the projects. Some may be environmental, and they resolve the issue of the harm that they are likely to cause. Most of the issues, a judge should focus to the facts of the case to know whether to inject or not. This is an opinion preferred by a lawyer, Kibe Mungai. So all these cases have been taken before court, and it's the headline, the intro to this story says, no other administration has had to contend with as many crippling court cases as President Uhuru Kenyatta's government. And with just 2 years to the end of his term, nearly all the president's legacy projects are at risk.
You know, I wonder whether we do these projects justice by labeling them legacy projects. Because I assume that primarily they are projects that are supposed to, well, among the many things, improve the livelihood of Kenyans. It's supposed to make the lives of Kenyans better. Yes, they may end up being legacy projects in terms of the president will be remembered by these things. But let me tell you something about legacy which is really genuinely tricky. You can think you're planning and proposing, or your advisors may tell you that these things may lead to a certain legacy. Legacy doesn't quite work that way.
How does it work?
This is how it works. Huh? You have all these plans about you want to put up these buildings and what have you. Point one, look at what it has generated in terms of news. It's being challenged. If they are good spin doctors, this can be a wonderful thing. It would show that in reality, the legacy that they're talking about, that Uhuru has actually allowed the democratic processes to take place. His government has begun projects, but they have not sought to hinder anyone who feels that they have been aggrieved or this matter has not been handled properly. So you could say he's helping open up the space. The political space, the legal space. You could argue that. That's one. So these projects have given an opportunity for that. Secondly, we have 17 months now before election. All right? Between now and then, if you think about the things that people remember, it isn't the structural projects. It's what affects them emotionally. Usually that's what people remember more than anything else. If, for instance, the building of the railway, the SGR, ended up in ensuring, like the Thika Highway, many people benefiting just by virtue of having land in close proximity. Those people will remember whoever began that project very fondly for a very, very long time. They'll even forget about the road. It's like the road brought about this, but they'll say, then they'll remember, there was this president who was behind it. But the road will get the benefit. Now, when you praise the road for bringing this prosperity, then you will think of the person who brought it. But on the other hand, if there's COVID, people are dying. And we see continuously a lack of what you may call a coherent government response. That is the legacy that will abide. This guy let people die and they did nothing.
It's true. That which pulls at your emotions or your heartstrings is what you're likely to remember the individual for. Yeah.
I'm not a social media person, but I don't feed off it. But every once in a while, I do enter into that particular arena. And the things I read, I'm reminded why I don't.
And you're reminded why I don't.
Yes. Hey,
okay.
Scary stuff.
And I think this is all, the intro says that no other president has faced what President Uhuru Kenyatta is facing. Of course, no other president has implemented the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Like President Uhuru.
It is only Uhuru who has implemented this fully. And that's why we are saying now this is the fruit of the Constitution, because it calls for very many things. Public participation. A project like now this expressway from JKIA to Westlands.
Where?
Public participation. It's in court. There are those who are challenging it, and they're saying very many things about it, and they're saying, all right, so immediately we went to court. The contractor should have moved from site. See, the contractor is still on site.
Yes.
Issues. Issues.
And the thing that people forget, like this SGR, very many people have been compensated. Do you actually ever read about people who've gotten 200 million, 100 million? You don't. But they've been compensated.
They have.
Yes.
It's the bad negative always that comes out. But when something is actually sorted out, or individuals then are compensated, like you're saying, it never really does come out.
No.
They're silence and they're silence.
Okay, so this is what they got, and this is what is on record.
Which means the bad, again, will take precedence.
Yes.
The National Land Commission and the commissioners and officers are facing a lot of investigation over the SGR land acquisition. In some instances, Kenya Railways appear to have sold land to itself.
Not in one, very many instances. The miracle that is Kenya.
The miracle that is Kenya,
Yeah.
I'm telling you. You give
Okia
yourself some-
Mtata, the activist who has a lot of these cases in court, says he claims that despite the law requiring all the projects should be budgeted for, President Uhuru Kenyatta's government has been relying on loans which have no clear accountability checks. All the cases are filed involved theft of public funds. The Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act do not allow you to procure where there are no funds, he says, adding that if the government was to strictly follow the law, then there'd be no pending bills.
You know, for many people, because they're not accustomed to it, they look at all these things and they consider it to be a bigger nuisance factor than anything else. But it's because it's new. We've actually never seen a constitution being actualized.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, we are seeing it. This is what it looks like. Where you find even parliament can be taken to court. Where you're seeing even the Chief Justice can be taken to court. I mean, you are seeing things that you never thought you would see, and it's very strange.
Yeah.
The noise that we're used to hearing is we are being picked on, but that one is also beginning to get a bit tired.
Our people, our person is
because
going
Yeah, it's because we're from this area.
Yes.
Because we have friends or not friends with which political leader.
And what's helping kill it is that a lot of that noise is coming from members of the same party.
Yep.
Same party. It's not the opposition, same party. So, again, the miracle that is Kenya. You are supposed to have an official opposition. Then the ruling party has decided to provide itself with an opposition.
So you find yourself in some...
And it's a very vigorous opposition.
So the opposition is basically finding itself in the opposition.
Yes. The opposition are wondering now, what are we supposed to do when the other guys are doing what we're supposed to do?
So the opposition is opposing the new opposition.
Why are they taking their jobs?
What's wrong with you people?
You're supposed to support the government. Not oppose it.
Focus on what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
Come on.
Wacha kuingilia kazi ya wengine.
Yeah. Why can't people just focus? Anyway, other stories?
Balala orders probe in local tourist ordeal. A man felt intimidated by authorities at a conservancy and went to complain on social media, attracting the CS's attention. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala has ordered Kenya Wildlife Services to open investigations into alleged harassment of a man inside a conservancy in Laikipia County. Mordecai Ogada protested harassment by armed private rangers on a public road while on a game drive with his children at Oljogi Conservancy on Saturday. Balala expects a report from KWS tomorrow. The government of Kenya and my ministry will not condone harassment or intimidation of Kenyans as they enjoy their God-given heritage. On Sunday, Ogada took to Facebook to narrate his ordeal, accusing foreigners from Oljogi Ranch of threatening to shoot him for taking wildlife pictures along the Nanyuki-Kinamba Road. This is interesting because it would look like just a normal case of harassment, right? But then if you look at this against what Najib Balala has been talking about in the recent past, in terms of how
Domestic tourism
domestic tourism now must be what will take the day. And then you see something like this, where a Kenyan is going through, foreigners
So
are
you're on
harassing
the
him.
road and you're taking photos of animals inside the conservancy.
Yes,
So the guy at the conservancy tells you where.
this is ours.
No photography.
In Kenya, your country.
What is actually strange is that it's now this understanding that actually those animals don't even belong to them.
They don't.
They don't.
Nope.
They're a national heritage. Every Kenyan has a stake, even if it is in your neck of the woods. Even that Kenyan who is 400 kilometers away has a say.
Yes. And here you are saying, and it's interesting because this has been worded that foreigners are the ones who threatened him with pointed guns, asking him to stop taking pictures and asked him to leave the area immediately. And cannot happen. Absolutely not. So Najib Balala has said, look, this also I will not accept. Because this is right in the middle of his push to say more and more Kenyans should come out and see what the country itself has to offer. And it will be probably one of the saving graces of the tourism industry that Kenyans, patronize some of these areas.
Again, you will find that even counties who understand, remember the thinking is that you understand how to allocate money and you allocate it justly. I'm sure every county has some department that deals with some form of tourism.
Yeah.
And they will advertise and they will even explain to you how they've spent money on this particular projects. So long as you don't ask too many questions about where the money actually went and how it was spent,
You'll be happy.
You'll be happy and you'll know that something is at least being told to you that it's being done.
Okay, this one. I don't know. I looked at it and I was like, okay, it's not unheard of.
It happens all the time.
This kind of treatment.
Yeah.
But then you try and figure out, so what is it that these private conservancies think? All right? What is their outlook to life? What is their outlook to this whole issue of tourism? So we'd like to keep it as exclusive as possible.
And exclusivity means not Kenyans.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Not any Kenyan hanky-panky and just driving in. If a Kenyan flies in,
leave
fine.
alone that it's in your country. Yeah.
Leave
alone that it's your country. That really doesn't matter.
Anyway, 12 minutes to 7 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Another quick break. We'll be back. Seven minutes. 7 minutes to 7. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are taking a look at interesting headlines in the paper. Lights dims on a monopoly, and this is a very well done graphical design.
Lovely stuff.
It's
Lovely
very
stuff.
lovely. All
Lovely
right.
stuff.
So basically, it says the country's sole electricity distributor has 7 million customers who paid it an average of 52 shillings per day last year. So why this strategic parastatal's books in the red? We'll look at where it all went wrong. So lights dim, and you know what happens when lights dim?
Darkness.
Darkness. There you go. It's all.
Lovely stuff.
all
Oh, nice.
all
Beautiful.
very, very well designed page, this one, on the special report.
Eye-catching.
It's a financial standard, today being Tuesday. Wow. So it gets this whole double spread of coverage. Kenya Power, how the lights are dimmed by the monopoly. And they look at since 2014, the average cost of an electricity bill has risen by 37%. 37% in 6 years. Outpacing inflation that has averaged 6% in the last 5 years. 6 million, the number of domestic consumers, which has tripled from about 2 million in 2013, but their uptick remains low. Well, yeah, this one we talked about, this whole rural electrification push. 3,900, the number of industrial consumers who account for 50% of electricity consumed, but have been growing at a slow pace. They account for about half of the money earned by the power utilities. And 9 is the rate promised per unit of electricity by the Jubilee administration in 2013, informed by the planned increase in generation to more than 5,000 megawatts. What consumers pay for every unit of power is 31% more than what they used to pay 6 years ago. Yeah? So what went wrong? It's all there in the standard
It's
today.
not that. I don't think anything went wrong, my brother.
Nothing has gone wrong.
No, not in that sense. I would argue what has continued to be wrong.
From the onset, huh?
Yes, because if you look at Kenya Power and how it has over time metamorphosized, on paper it appears that they were actually very seriously working at meeting the needs or the power needs of the country and the citizenry.
Yeah.
And what doesn't make sense is that with all this power production and consumption, no matter how you want to matrix it, you're told they're still making a loss. Now, that one, it defies basic arithmetic, the 1 + 1 arithmetic. It defies it completely. So one then has to explain how a monopoly, which in theory is making money,
Then
Yes.
it's going at a loss.
yes, so is it that they have more employees than they need? Is it, whatever it is, are they spending more money with infrastructure than they need? Whatever it is, all these questions have to be asked. But still, they seem to mitigate against these by doing what? They're always increasing their
The rates.
Yes, exactly. You throw in then government taxes on it. Even still, you throw in inflation on it. Still, that arithmetic is still a bit difficult to
It's
understand.
not working. Really, it doesn't come
It's
together.
difficult to understand.
I also don't really quite understand why, for example, this year they're projecting to get 25% fall in profit. A 25% fall in profit.
What's happened?
Why? The
And
lights
this
are
year.
still on. People are still
No,
purchasing.
not
Yep.
only that,
What's going on?
please consider, they'll say COVID, isn't it?
Yeah.
They'll say manufacturing has
Yeah,
reduced.
reduced.
Then I would have to ask, explain to me what you mean. What that manufacturing, the labor force is not what determines manufacturing. It's the equipment, the demand.
Yep.
Are we saying the demand has gone
Have they
down?
switched off their machines?
Yes, exactly. Because if they have, then they're not consuming power. We know, for instance, that the demand for oil products has gone down. That we've understood because the airline industry was on its knees, manufacturing, etc. Those are easy to explain. But this one of ours, how do you arrive at 25%? If you said 5%, I would say, okay, makes sense. 10, even 25. How? A quarter.
It's been in the news recently. Now, they've reconstituted the board, right? They've appointed new non-executive directors who've been announced today. Remember the others who just all resigned en masse, and new ones have now been appointed.
Eric, shouldn't we ask that question? After all this time, why did we have this mass exodus all of a sudden? What was happening?
What is it?
What was put? Because it's like they were pushed.
What is it that is happening at Kenya Power?
The new appointments we've all seen. Nice, it's good to appoint new people.
Yeah.
New broom, hopefully.
Yep.
It's a broom. Let's hope it's actually, yes, and
It sweeps clean.
yes, and it has the capacity to sweep. We assume. But what actually is happening at Kenya Power?
It's a lot. 5 new directors, right?
Hey!
5 new.
At a go.
Non-executive. The others left.
But there,
All
is there,
5 at a go.
is there anybody you know here?
Yeah. Caroline Kitoni Wayaki.
You know these things that
Sachin
wonders.
Gudka has some reputation. And also Engineer Abdurazak Ali. He served as a PS.
How many are government employees?
None of them. These are all non-executive. The others are now, they're joining the ones who are government.
You know what I find interesting? Talking about hawana promotional material like free tokens. So I was asking if you know someone.
There's a reason why he was asking if you know anybody there. Not whether
To get some
you're aware that
tokens.
these individuals are up to scratch in terms of their ability to perform. You must have seen that coming from afar. Right?
I did.
You didn't?
That one just caught me off guard. Okay, something we did not do at the beginning of this show is today's proverb. And now that we are at the top of the hour, today's proverb.
However far the stream flows, it never forgets its source.
Who asked it?
This is a Nigerian saying.
Had to be.
Eziokwu bụ ndụ.
Yes.
However far the stream flows, it never forgets its,
its
source.
source. Yes. Good.
Good. Keep it right here. We'll be continuing our conversations this morning. Shortly, we'll be joined by Nakuru Senator Susan Keheka, and we'll be on KTN Home. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting from Nairobi to Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, and also on www.spicefm.co.ke and our social media handles. 7 o'clock.
All right, seeing if anything has changed so far. Road's still looking pretty good this morning. We don't have much drama as such. Kangunda Road is flowing very smoothly this morning. And we also take a look at Thika Road where it looks like it's okay. However, on Jogo Road, a lot of vehicular traffic from Rabai Road all the way to Likoni Road, and it's very, very slow. Likoni Road is to be opened today, and with so it's already open. Lunga Road is supposed to be opened today, so that will make it easier to traverse traffic this morning. Looking at Thika Road as well this morning, it looks pretty good all the way from Safari Park Hotel. It's moving along very slowly, but it's inching, so we don't have any bumper-to-bumper situations there as yet. Looking at Mombasa Road, getting from the SGR all the way to the turnoff at JKIA, that also looks pretty good this morning. We don't have much drama. So far, so good. We'll enter into traffic hour in a very short while, and we'll take a look at how all that looks. From your neck of the woods, tell us what you see. Spice FMKE on Twitter. We don't want anybody stuck this morning, so let's help each other out, shall we?
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other.
The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We broadcast on 94.4 in Nairobi. We are in Malindi, 97.7 in Nyeri, 90.9 in Kisumu, 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, and Mombasa 87.9. We also live stream to the world on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Welcoming our audience on KTN Home. This is the second hour of the show. In the room is City Muga, Nduh Okoh, and I'm Eric Latiff. Shortly, we'll be joined by the Nakuru Senator, Susan Keheka, to discuss the bill that she's proposed, and it's already gone through to the third reading of Parliament. It's in the Senate, and this is the Reproductive Healthcare Bill 2019. Mm-hmm. This bill is, when you hear reproductive, the first person that you expect to react is religious organizations.
And that is exactly what has happened.
And right on cue, when it was published, when it went through public participation and public debate, this bill elicited a lot of feedback from the religious organizations. A number of things that it's proposing, it's quite progressive in terms of what it's proposing. It's basically saying, let's open up our conversation. First of all, let's look at adolescents and ensure that we give them access to age-appropriate reproductive health services, which includes counseling, which includes teaching them about unsafe abortions and all this. Now, the tricky words here include unsafe, abortion.
Abortion, just that word. Bad word.
Bad word already.
Yes,
when
safe. Yes.
When they hear that. And then talking about now sex education. So it's introducing some sense of sex education to the adolescents. And then also it has some provisions on the abortion bill itself. And it says, so what is this that we're going to discuss about abortion?
I think all of this comes on the premise that certain things are happening anyway. And I think, unfortunately, there's a reluctance to accept the fact that the age over time has become lower and lower when it comes to some of these now contentious issues that some organizations seem to be bringing out, especially the religious organizations. Just those words that you've mentioned: abortion, age-appropriate sexual lessons and counseling. And then also when you want to talk about pregnancy, the truth of the matter, whether you want to accept it or not, religion or not, is that the age bracket has been lowered over time. More and more younger people are getting into such practice. It doesn't matter how we want to look at it. And unfortunately, where I see all of this coming from is that there's a reluctance to accept the reality on the ground that this is happening. Now, whereas it would be a good thing to take the bill in its entirety, what has happened is that certain groups have taken certain parts of it and decided that this is what they're going to run with and say, we are not going to accept this. Whereas there could be some merits that are being thrown out the window, typical baby bathwater situation. And it's being, that one contentious issue is being looked at and then used to ascribe either damnation or acceptance to the entire bill.
I look at it, in addition to what you're saying, this way. It is yet an opportunity to actually hash out all these matters that people may believe in firmly and their perspective on this particular subject of reproductive health. Because when something raises this sort of debate, it means it has challenged what we may refer to as the norm.
Yeah.
What people have held to be sacrosanct. And it's saying, can we look at this again, please? And I think I would add to that conversation and say, yes, let us look at it again. Let us discuss it in greater detail. Because this subject of reproductive health didn't start in the 21st century. This debate has gone on for the longest time. And believe me, people have shifted, have changed, have had different perspectives. People have gone into camps, groups. There have been labelings. It's not going to end.
No, it isn't. And I think a lot of these conversations need to be fueled by the reality on the ground. Look at what we saw in the last 2 months. Just for example, in terms of the so-called unwanted pregnancies that have become rife amongst young girls across the country. From county to county, everybody has their numbers that they had been reporting or that had been recorded over time. So what does that mean? People are engaging in sexual activity, for example, number one. Look at the numbers of unsafe abortions that are being had around the country, whether you want to like it or not, whether you want to admit it or not, it is happening. So if you have a girl who's getting pregnant between the ages of 9 and 14, what does that mean? She's engaging in sex. It's clear. So I think, unfortunately, the discussion or the debate has always been had from a religious point of view, from a social point of view, from a leadership, governmental point of view, with blinders on. And like you said, it's time to have the conversation now with those proverbial blinders off. Because if we don't, how many people continue to suffer? When we look at things like, young girls being pregnant and then going in to have their babies, and they then continue to suffer from things like fistula, rife in some parts of the country. How would it be if we now, peppered that with some bit of information? And I think this is what this is trying to do. Open up the conversation so we can talk about things. And it's necessary to do. If you have to say that thousands of girls in one county have been recorded or reported to be pregnant or, in the last 4 months, it means something. So wouldn't you rather have them go in armed with information? And I think this is where the conversation is coming from.
There was a time when if a young lady was unfortunate enough not to have sex but to actually get pregnant and you were still in school, that was the end of your education.
Life, the end of your life.
Gone, finished.
Yeah, yeah.
And the argument has always been the young men or the men involved always got away scot-free. Okay? That has changed. Young women have been known to get pregnant and have been known to go back to school. I know because I was a head teacher myself. I know. And this is something you had to look at as a parent and say, okay, what is in the best interest of this person? And this is really one of the things that this particular bill seems to look at. What are the rights of this particular individual? And then brings in the other question of the rights of the unborn child.
Child, right.
There's that other debate. And then the decision-making process. Who holds the upper hand in the decision-making process? In the field of HIV and AIDS, when someone was HIV positive and it was clear it hadn't been brought about as a result of something they inherited through their birth, or someone already had a child, they were called mature minors. A term was coined to accommodate them so that they could receive the same help and be accorded the same rights as people who had reached the consensual age. Because it was the realistic thing to do. This person already has a child. So, by virtue of having this child, the role that they play in the life of this child that they have born is the role of an adult. So if you want to assist them, you must accord them that treatment. Now, what this meant, and this is where the debate arose, is where do their parents come in? It's a debate that still goes on, by the way, because when you talk of confidentiality, how on earth do you accommodate the parents of this child, who is then at that point in time also a parent? A
parent. Exactly. And, then asking yourself, where do they cease being a child? Because the assumption is that for the period of time that this individual is a child, there are certain provisions or protections that parents then are the ones offering. So, and also decision making on behalf of this individual. So when that time lapses, then you would assume that they make these decisions then for themselves. Many parents up until this point are thinking that even until the age of 25, they don't want these individuals making these decisions for themselves, because they feel that, however they have seen them over time, whether they're ready or not, then still is their decision to make.
See, this is where now you intermingle a social construct with a legal one. Who has the right to make the decision? Socially, you never stop being a parent. That is the truth. But if you're talking about legally, at the age of 18, that individually referred to as a child can make the decisions for themselves, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
I think there are also calls, just looking at this entire bill and looking at the discussions that are being had around it, there is a call for, if such a thing can be, that a lot of religious organizations, a lot of religious leaders, unfortunately, now get off the moral high horse and take into consideration the reality on the ground. Let's just be honest. Even the young people that fill churches, for example.
If religious organizations climb down the moral high ground, who shall be left up there?
What I'm saying is this. The fact remains that as we are saying, let's not talk about this. Remove it from the bill completely, right? Take it out of the bill. Let's not even have the discussion. Guess what? These young people, the ones who fill church every Sunday, right? The ones who are attending the youth groups or whatever are having sex anyway. That's the truth.
So we legalize it anyway?
No. They're having these conversations amongst themselves. So what I'm saying is, like we said, now I say there are very many parts of this bill that have merit. But I am saying open up the arena for conversation so that because they're engaging in this, whether you want to deem it right or wrong is not the issue. But can they have informed discussion?
So how does the law open this up for discussion? Look, this is part 7 of the bill, section 32. The national government shall collaborate with county governments to ensure that adolescents have access to adolescent-friendly reproductive health services. What are these services that are age-appropriate? Mentorship program, spiritual and moral guidance, counseling on abstinence, consequences of unsafe abortion, and sexually transmitted infections and HIV/AIDS, substance and drug abuse, training in livelihood and life skills, vocational trainings, and such other health services as the Cabinet Secretary shall determine. A healthcare provider from whom reproductive health services are sought by an adolescent shall refer the adolescent to a qualified person for the provision of the necessary services. Okay? Now, this is where the religious organizations, for example, are reading and saying, look, just looking at the wordings of some of these clauses. Number one, we are saying, yes, we shall introduce sex education to the children. And according to what the evangelicals said in their press conference, were saying this kind of sex education is basically saying that we shall teach our young boys and girls that sex is good for recreation.
Reproduction.
Not reproduction. Enjoying.
Okay.
This is what they translate it to. And then they also say, when you say that we are teaching children about consequences of unsafe abortion, basically then if you teach about unsafe abortion, then you shall also have to talk about what is safe abortion.
And that's a conversation that they don't want to have. But what I'm saying
What is safe abortion? Now, if you start promoting to this young mind,
you're giving them the option of abortion.
You're giving them that option. And then listen to this. A healthcare provider from whom reproductive health services are sought by an adolescent shall refer the adolescent to a qualified person for the provision of this service.
So essentially, the problem is that you're making the option available to young people. You're making the option available to them. So then you want to push it forward and say, so what they're going to do then is engage in any kind of sexual activity because they know the option of then going ahead to procure a safe abortion then becomes readily available to them. And that is essentially what they're trying to avoid.
This is where now this is where the crux of the matter is, because this is what they're arguing against. They're saying, look, the way we are wording this is we're introducing abortion through the back door. Already, we have fought abortion in very many other ways. So, for instance, there's the provision here of on abortion itself specifically. Let me get to it. Termination of pregnancy. This is clause 26, part 5 of the bill. It seeks to allow a trained health professional to terminate a pregnancy if, now we know that there are two provisions in the Constitution for termination of a pregnancy. One of them is when there is need for emergency treatment, and the second one is the pregnancy would endanger the life or health of the mother. There's a third one that's being introduced in this bill. If there exists a substantial risk that the fetus would suffer from a severe physical or mental abnormality that is incompatible with life outside the womb. If you think that this child will be born and they'll have some physical or mental abnormality, you can terminate this pregnancy.
If you think, or if it's tested.
Then you enter the realm of the right to life.
Yeah. And this is where now the religious organization went straight into that one and said, look, here what you're saying is that we are going to be killing children who have a disability even before they are born.
Even before they get an opportunity to be able to fight the odds, which is what a lot of have. And so now what they're calling this is intentional killing of human life.
Yes.
That's what they've called it, which is unacceptable.
It's
been a global raging debate for decades.
It has, because essentially what you're saying is this, that you have the right to select or predetermined the sort of human beings who should inhabit this earth. And that they must be free of any infirmity, physical or otherwise. Essentially, you've given yourself a godlike quality. That one, religious organizations will fight you
tooth and nail.
Oh, they will not give any quarter.
Does it make sense, though?
Yes, it does. Their fight makes a lot of sense.
Not the fight, the inclusion of this clause. If you think about, okay, so what is the intention, for example, of the drafter of this bill, Susan Kihika? If we are talking about we can terminate a pregnancy if there exists a substantial risk that the fetus would suffer from there's severe physical or mental abnormality that is incompatible with life outside the womb.
What you're saying...
Substantial, severe, incompatible.
Yes. You then bring into debate the advances that we've made in science.
Mm-hmm.
You then bring into debate the mitigation that the world of medicine has brought into being over the years, and how it is that things that people are born with, infirmities that were considered to be damning, have been reversed. You then bring into debate, again, as I said, you are now playing God. You see? If it is a condition that is widespread, remember that story that we highlighted regarding the lead poisoning that was taking place in a village, Uhuru Owino, in Changamwe.
Yeah.
People died, 30 children died, 20 adults passed away, lead poisoning. Now, in such a situation, you know what was causing the problem. They got to know it later, all right?
Yeah.
And even then, there would be a serious debate. Are you dealing with the consequence or are you dealing with the cause? What brought it about?
Yeah.
If this young girl, remember the one where the debate usually also rages, but not, is when the life of the mother is in danger. Okay? If you're talking about a young person, a very young person, expecting, their lives are likely to be in danger. Because much as they can conceive, but the bodies may not have matured to the point where they can actually safely bring forth a child. That may be a problem. But it's a debate that has to go on. You know why? Experts have to wade in, people who actually deal specifically in this particular area, the advances that have been made, because the discussions are not beginning in Kenya. Oh, they've been had for the longest possible time, because when dealing with pregnancy, why not talk about ensuring people don't get pregnant? Then you meet another problem. So you're telling our children to just have sex.
Essentially, that's what you're doing.
Why the debate is important is because it brings forth a certain reality that many parents may not be ready to face. So these lovely, wonderful children of yours who you go to church every day may be having sex and you have absolutely no clue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like you did and your parents had no clue.
Yes,
I mean, it's not like it's anything new.
They're not inventing it. Yes. So, shouldn't you then look at this, the possibility of saying, oh, look, it is likely to happen, so why don't we equip them adequately?
Inform them.
Yes.
Inform them so that they're aware what they're doing.
Yes.
If they happen to now wade into said waters, inform them so that they're armed with what they need to go through. Because unfortunately, if you look at the studies that have been done, a lot of cases then, end in death and in irreversible situations on bodies of young men and women because of the fact that they're doing things that they don't have any information about. So, because it's like the situation of, okay, where we have reached so far, you would rather give them the information that they need.
It's not just information,
No, it isn't.
It's services. What does services mean? That you're saying that these teenagers can
Medical
actually go...
facilities, for example.
Yep. And birth control.
Because it's happening, man. It's happening.
So we are saying basically that let's allow our children to go and buy birth control, procure birth control.
Let there be a safe haven. Let there be a youth-friendly center where all these discussions that we're having can be had. I know for a fact that, again, with the advent of HIV, youth-friendly centers were thought of and even actualized in certain parts of the country. It's within the hospital, but just for the youth. And it was not labeled HIV. Any health matter that the youth had, they would go there. Yes. And there was a deliberate attempt to ensure that the sort of people who actually work there, 1 year volunteers who are youth, members of youth groups, people who are clearly young, and even the healthcare providers are people who you could consider youthful, people whom they could resonate and identify with. Yes. And I do not have the details of how successful they they have turned out to be over the years, but I do know that they were welcomed, and problems that previously were very difficult to resolve within the normal flow of healthcare provision, the problems were lessened considerably, because the youth then knew that they had a place which was their own. No one who was not considered a youth would ever go to that particular center.
Were there adolescents going to that center?
Yes, there were. There were. Let me explain what they put in the center that I know of. They made sure, for instance, that they had available something like an internet cafe where you could actually go, you had access to internet. A small place where you could find reading material.
Yep.
A pool table.
Yep.
All right? A small room where if you wanted to have discussions with your youth group, you could have. Meaning, they tried to provide it was genuinely a center where
It
you
was
could...
a rec center, essentially.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Were there condoms provided
Yes,
for all age groups?
yes.
They're breaking the law.
No, we're not breaking the law. Within the hospital compound, there were free condoms being provided. There's a dispense.
Yeah.
Anybody can go and nobody would stop you. So, within the health facility, such things were provided. If it was a standalone youth center, that argument would hold water, and you'd say, but the law doesn't quite allow this. But within a hospital setting, no.
Well, this is the thing. I think, times have changed whereby, previously the church church and religious organizations could be the ones that would lead these conversations. Time has changed whereby, because guess what? These urges whereby you have hormones on legs and things, like this happening.
On speed dial.
On speed dial, rather, not even just on legs. Amongst young people, they're walking around exploring, discussing amongst themselves, discovering things that, maybe would be a little bit better in terms of an experience if they were equipped and if they had the right information. So where I'm coming from is I'm saying, look, because of the fact that they are engaging. If they put on their proverbial halo for you when they're in your home as your children, trust me, there's a time where they take it off. And you wouldn't be able to see it. If they come and they sit in the pews on Sunday, for example, guess what? There's a whole 6 other days when they're not sitting in that place, and you don't know what they're doing. So I think it would be irresponsible, and I can go ahead and use that word. It would be irresponsible not to equip or inform. And look, you have adults today who probably wish that they had been given the right information, that they would have had access to those services when they were younger, and maybe they would not have made the decisions that they made, or maybe their experience would be different. And I'm telling you, talk to adults across the divide, across spheres. They would tell you, actually, I found out a lot of what I found out on my own. And I wish that I would have had the information or the services to give me a better experience.
You see,
Let's take a quick break, Siti and Nduh. Let's take a break. At 25 minutes after 7, we are discussing this very controversial reproductive health care bill. The sponsor of this bill, the Senator Susan Keheka, will be joining us shortly because it has very many provisions in it. Anyway, let's take a break. You're on Spice FM. This is the Situation Room. You're also on KTN Home.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and
Starting in Nairobi, mostly cloudy conditions for most parts of this morning. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 12 today. Taking a look then into Njeri, where it's cloudy this morning at 13 degrees. Showers expected later with highs of 20 and lows of 13. In Nakuru this morning, cloudy conditions at 13, highs of 20 and lows of 13. All right, in Eldoret, 12 degrees and mostly cloudy. We'll see thunderstorms later with highs of 18 and lows of 12. Kisumu, mostly cloudy this morning and chance of showers quite high with highs of 24 and lows of 10. Kakamega is mostly cloudy this morning at 16 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 16, and it's touted to be a wet afternoon in Kakamega. Mombasa weather this morning is partly cloudy at 23 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 22 with showers expected later on. Malindi at 24 degrees is partly cloudy this morning, highs of 27 throughout the day. All right, taking a look then into Kampala, it's mostly cloudy at 18 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 17. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 22 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 21. Let's take a look then into Joburg, where it's clear skies at 7 degrees today, highs of 20 and going down to a very chilly low of 3. And in Lagos, for now, partly cloudy conditions at 24 degrees, chance of showers quite high this morning, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Like this morning, things may have changed, definitely right in the middle of traffic hour, right around now. Gong Road, it's a little bit crazy, but all the way from the junction, it looks like it's going to hold up a while as you get down towards the city mortuary roundabout, but it shouldn't take you too badly then moving down Gong Road towards Community. Limuru Road inbound, an accident shortly after the Muthaiga drift before 6th Avenue Parklands. Approach with caution, but police are on site trying to clear that out. Mombasa Road before Simba Cement towards Athi River. People are flying is what we are being told. Take it easy though, guys, because we don't want that to end up in a muck of an accident in any way, shape or form. So Mombasa Road looks really good today. Thika Road, a little bit of jam. Getting to the Pangani underpass, you'll be fine there after. Kangunda Road still continues to flow very, very smoothly. Coming out of Westlands, getting to the CBD, that also looks pretty good. We don't have any holdups. We'll let you know if we do. Let us know what you see too. Spice FM, KE.
This is the situation, Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, we broadcast on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Njeri, Malindi 97.7, and also on our live stream www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And also this hour on KTN Home. In the room, my name is Eric Latiff. We have CT Muga and Nduh Okoh. We are discussing reproductive health care, and especially for now focusing on the adolescents and the young adults, right? And you were saying the experiences that you saw with, the dealing with HIV is that there would be provision for youth-friendly centers, for HIV.
Pregnancy has a very high stigma quotient, especially among that particular age group. So a youth-friendly center would help mitigate against this. Somewhere you are just among younger people and people who you feel will not judge you. The ethos around reproductive health, this is me being polite and saying, the ethos around sex, having it and discussing it in this country often borders on the hypocritical. And when you throw in religion, it doesn't border. It now becomes full-blown hypocritical. because the practice and the preaching of it are not necessarily in tandem. But the reality now brings us to the discussion that we're having now. Young people will have sex. Some will get pregnant. So what do we do? And this is not something that is happening in the 21st century. It has happened from antiquity. Because that age that they're at, that's when the system is pumping. And there are things that they're beginning to figure out.
System is...
Man, there's energy, there's everything.
Everything.
Yes, it's popping up and it's...
And curiosity.
Yes, and if you do not take the time and the bother to ensure that there is a clear understanding of these things, they'll be educated by YouTube. And by their friends who've watched
who
have read and understood YouTube the way they understand it.
Yep.
This is exactly what I'm saying. Because
so
here's
what you're advocating is sex education.
Yes, proper sex education. An opportunity has been provided to give this information. You'd rather... Look, the truth of the matter is, this is where you would be. If we have some people in society right now who are saying, no, don't talk about it, what are you doing? You're just covering a problem and then giving it time to really simmer and then erupt.
Okay.
So here you have an opportunity to then be part of the solution, because they're not going to stop because you say, let's not talk about it. You sweep it under the carpet,
So
it
what
still
is sex
remains
education?
dirt. You sweep it under the carpet, it still remains dirt. So, look, do you know there are young girls today, to my horror, who believe they got pregnant because somebody touched them like this. Really even understanding the process. Because once you understand the nitty-gritty of something, then you're able to make a decision about whether you want to be involved with it or not. Most people, you'd be shocked. 2020, where we are.
So how should
people
this
don't
education be
understand what's
delivered?
going on.
Is it in school? Is it in churches? Is it at home? I mean, what format?
I believe
should
that
this
whatever resource that we have available right now should be used. Should be used. I'm not saying in Sunday school on Sunday morning, then you start now having sexual education for young people. That's not what I'm saying. But I believe that
you can actually have sexual education by introducing the biblical perspectives of it at an appropriate age.
At an appropriate age, yes.
So that's the biblical aspect. What I was going to say is that it has been found over time that whenever we are talking about a solution, it's not, as we call it, the magic bullet. It's a multi-pronged approach.
Everybody has to be involved.
You are going to ensure that there's a curriculum that deals with it and the content is appropriate. Then you will ensure that the religious organizations have their say. Parents are supposed to have their say.
And it has to be true. Do you
Yes.
see what I'm saying? It has to be true. It has to be a true representation of the process. I read a book, again, to my horror. John smiled at Mary, and a year later they had a baby. I mean, this is the practical stuff that we're talking about. And that is something that is being taught in a school to actual human beings.
Age appropriate. What age are those? Is the audience for that book?
It's in primary school.
What age?
What's the age of primary school?
Well, it starts from 7 to 11.
Yeah, exactly. So
Not
across
11
that
actually,
age,
a lot. Yeah. 7
13
to
even.
13.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Still, it is not true.
There's a difference between a 6-year-old and a 13-year-old.
That is okay.
Oh, massive.
Oh, of course there is.
So what age is this book targeting? The one for
I believe
John
that-
and Mary,
I
standard one?
believe,
It's still not true. It is still not true.
Yeah, but the birds and the bees are taught to younger kids.
you know something? When we reflect our own conflicts about this particular matter and then transfer it to our children, it becomes an issue.
It does.
So, yes, because for most of our people, I'm talking about Africans in this.
It's not something you talk about.
No, it's at night,
In the
in
night.
the dark,
If you
under
can
a blanket,
if you can
even in
switch
hot
off-
weather.
Switch off the moon if
Yes,
you can.
yes. So, if you start from that perspective, all right, and then you throw in the religious understanding of it, you know, these things actually, all of them have to be brought to the table for discussion. Some sort of, you may not necessarily agree,
Yeah.
but at least there'll be a greater understanding.
You may not agree. It may make you uncomfortable.
But there's a greater understanding.
But you would come out, I think, with a better understanding and be more informed.
That is information. But when you come to other services, now, if you're telling adolescents, because now this particular bill is dealing specifically with adolescents, all right? How do you want to conduct this training? How do you want to give out this sex education?
I wouldn't start there.
And how do you...
I would start by asking myself, do a little what they call baseline work or formative work. Find out what these people actually know. You know, this thing of starting from the top of saying this is what they need, you'll miss the boat completely. You actually need to understand primarily what this age group knows and understands. Then these interventions that you have in mind can be tailored to be appropriate for that age. Otherwise, you will be talking to yourself. It is your idea of what these young people want. It's your idea of what you think is appropriate. It's like choosing clothes for them. It's your idea of how they should go about this thing. Man, in this day and age, when you have other sources of information competing with yours, please find out what they know.
Find out what they know.
And find out what they'd like. And find out, even take it further, how they'd like this communicated with them, because they do have an idea. They're not blank. We are the ones who take these people to school. We are the ones who give them ideas. We are the ones who give them information, or we enable them to understand information or to access it. So if you don't understand this pool of information that you've enabled your children, your adolescents to gather, how then can you say that you have an appropriate schema that you're trying to apply and that is useful to them? How?
I'm going to open the phone lines for this conversation, 0719-012-600. And the issue right now is sex education for the adolescents and sex services, reproductive health services for the adolescents. What is it that you think would be appropriate, and how should it be conducted in terms of offering this education? Is it school? Is it curriculum? Is it at home? Is it... and because the truth of the matter is, CT, like you've said, yes, these young people are engaging in sexual activity. As we have seen recently, many are engaging in sexual activity, and especially for the girls, they end up pregnant. What is it that we want to see happening? Is it about giving education? Do we need a law to come in and deal with these issues of morality? Because it's about morality and parenthood. Others would argue this way. Yep. So let's hear what they have to say. Masiga in Chuka, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. You're well?
I am well. I'm grateful for this topic today.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to point out something that it's true. This conversation needs to be an ongoing debate every day. And then COVID has made it a little bit difficult to deal with this issue. For one, these kids are accessing phones, downloading pornographic materials, and watching them.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, yesterday I was distributing condoms, and I came across a group of young men seated together.
Mm-hmm.
What were they doing? Walikuwa wanaangalia some pornographic things. So
how young?
Sometimes secondary school kids.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the government in the later years had this thing called Youth Friendly Service Centers. So they were almost constructed all over the country, but very few are functional. Very few are functional. So at least the government had all these things prospected in the later years. It should make them practical as from yesterday.
Thank you very much, Masiga. That's some very good insights that you're giving us this morning. Well, this is the Situation Room, 0719-012-600. We are seeking your opinion on this particular topic that we are discussing this morning. How is it that we should conduct this sex education? Simon in Mombasa. Simon, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. So,
Simon, you're a youth counseling psychologist.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also a university student at the University of Nairobi.
Okay.
And the reality on the ground is that youth are engaging in sexual activities, but very few understand what it entails to do success.
Mm-hmm.
And youth, whenever they share this information, either mislead each other, courtesy of fake news on the internet.
Yep.
And whatever I've had you guys speaking, equipping and informing youth, it's okay. That is what should be happening. But what is currently happening is what we should be focused on. And my take is simple. In as much as teenage pregnancies are on the rise, HIV and AIDS also is on the rise. The only thing which will save the Kenyan youth is for parents to have a mind shift, a paradigm mind shift, in that once their mindsets are to be known that they are of concern to the children that they have, these children are to be well informed and to make right decisions. So very few people open up whenever we speak to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. John in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I love the conversation you guys are having right now.
Thank you.
However, I feel like we are starting this conversation from the very top. We should look at it right from the bottom. At what point did we lose the focus before even we introduce this conversation of having sex education?
Where did we lose the focus, John?
I think the focus, we lost it from a point of how are we being responsible parents, and then how do we teach our children to be more responsible? In the sense that we look at our modern world right now, our parents will allow our children, I know we are growing in learning, and we let our children access online detail without even scrutinizing what really are they watching or are they accessing. Then we want to let other people to rectify a mistake that we breed at home.
Could I ask you something, please?
Yes,
you
please.
say we lost it. At what point did we actually have it?
Let's compare the generations. I think it's important we look back to the generations when our children were friends to their parents. We had a very close relationship with our parents, not because they never had or they had a lot of time for us. It's because they treasured their presence.
Actually,
right now, our
parents, if you talk about parents of an age gone by, I belong to that age group, it's because they didn't have very much else competing with their time. The only competition you had was probably a radio. If you really tried, was a TV. That's it.
Yes, but look at it, our current generation. Let's talk of the 21st century parents. As we compete with our resources, as we compete with our economical factors, why do we treasure a lot of presence other than presence? Because it's out of the presence that we'll be able to have certain conversations with our children. Do we have that time for our children?
Good points. Good points, John. Thank you very much for that point. Catherine in Njeri, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm wondering one thing. On the moral grounds of this issue, as a Christian, as a Catholic, I remember when I was a youth, we used to be told clearly what the Sixth Commandment means and the repercussions. Why aren't we talking of it is fornication? Because the media is so powerful. If it was used to promote abstaining, it would work. In fact, if there's something that has failed us in this country and the world over is the media.
Okay.
We just promote things that are so highly sexualized. I work with youth. I mentor them at a university. And what I notice is when we give them alternative activities to engage their idle and free time with, they turn around completely.
So basically, you don't give them any information about sex.
We talk about sex clearly.
Right.
No. And we also tell them that it is a sin. Fornication. What happened to fornication? What happened to us calling a sin, surely? Yes. So there's that bit that we are failing.
And
we are getting so comfortable.
Because then you start to dance on the edge of things like rights and people's beliefs. How do you take into consideration those other individuals who don't necessarily feel that they would be doing anything wrong?
What the first thing is, as churches, let me explain what I understand. When we talk to the youth, we do not go hiding what is using condoms and contraceptives. We explain everything. But then we also tell them, it is a sin to engage in these things at this particular time. And I remember that worked for me, because it does not mean that you do not end up failing, because I also would fail. I would have sex. I was in college, but then my conscience would condemn me, and I would turn around and do the right thing.
Okay, so
and
there's
especially
information
on abortion, and whether it's safe abortion as it's being called, is still killing another human being. What is the human right for that child? Because what would keep us away to not wanting to do sex is imagining that I may conceive, and if I abort, I am killing someone. Why aren't we putting the sins as sins? Because it works. I have seen it work. I have some 25-year-old virgin youths right now.
Yeah.
And I remember it was so disappointing. A guy not telling that lady, how are you a virgin at 25? And she broke down. We are even stigmatizing those who are doing the right thing. It's like doing the wrong thing is the right thing nowadays. Yes.
There's something that is often referred to, even in our constitution, as a separation of powers.
Yes.
What you say about the media may have some weight, but it isn't entirely true. Because
you have some heavy weight.
We do.
Let's just call it some weight. People listen to you.
Believe me, it is some. Because there is a limit to how much even the media can influence. People have very many other avenues that influence them, depending on the inclination. But that was not really what I wanted to do. What I wanted to say was this.
Yeah.
If the religious organizations do not play their part in ensuring that they pass on this message, then how exactly would you want the media to assist you?
And do you know how I mean you're so powerful? They listen to you like God. What you guys support, that is what they support. Like the lady who is speaking right now, whatever she's saying, the next meeting I have with those youth, I'll be told, you see, you are told to get out of your moral high horses. They listen to every word you say and they use it as a Bible. So if someone is supporting the right values, being very clear that whether it is safe or unsafe, we are killing someone.
All right. So now it comes to the issue of values.
Yes.
We
need to mix the two. The leaders and the media needs to put it very clearly.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for your views. Justus in Kilifi, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Eric and Tim and Titi.
We are well, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. I want to make a very brief contribution. I think the problem with adolescent and youth sexuality is the adult. The problem is not with the youth.
There you go.
It's the adult. We are the ones who are, to borrow the lady's phrase, sitting on some sort of moral high ground without appreciating the fact that the ground under us has shifted.
There you go.
I remember when we were in high school, there was this magazine called True Love and Ram. That was our pornography. We could kind of get the picture, the explicit pictures of beautiful ladies. That's the farthest we could go.
Yep.
And so the point I'm trying to make is that every generation has their form of pornography to enjoy.
So where is the failure of the adults then?
The adults, because we are busy prescribing the traditions we had, the standards we had, we are not adjusting them. Secondly, we have professionalized talking to young people. It's no longer about appreciating their growth, the realities they are growing with, but we are trying to make professional standards. Like now what you have just read, the Act. The Act, you can, even when you read the bill, when you read it, you can see adult morality. You can feel religious indignation about things the youth are doing, the youth are thinking, the youth are talking. Why don't we sit back and ask whether the act of sex itself, is it the ultimate sin? When we want to conceptualize this youth, decadency, sexual failures, consequences, is the final act of having sex the starting point? Because everybody's talking about how do we prevent risky sex, how do we prevent youth from having sex?
You've gone philosophical on us just as now.
What exactly happens? Because you can have safe sex and you walk around not pregnant. So are you okay? Are you a good youth? Somebody may just have sex once in a while, even the 25-year-old virgin she's talking about, and she becomes pregnant. Is she therefore being morally decadent? What I want to say is this, the last thing is that we also need to look at this young people and sexuality by focusing on adults who create the conditions under which these people actually have that risky sex.
Okay.
Because you can, I suspect, in many of these cases where young people are pregnant, it's not teenage to teenage pregnancy which is predominant. It's adult to young people.
Justus, thank you. Thank you very much. Frederick in Mombasa, thank you for holding on for such a while.
Oh, yeah.
How are you, Frederick?
Yeah, I'm good. How is the team? Eric, Nduh, it has been a while since I called you.
How have you been?
Very well, thank you.
I'm good. I'm safe. I'm actually in Mombasa still.
Okay.
And I'm COVID free. Yeah,
Fantastic. Remain that way, and others around you.
It's good to hear. Talk about what we're discussing today, Frederick.
Exactly. Actually, it's a good topic, and I've listened to what the callers earlier have said, and mine is to start from maybe a lower or a different point. Starting from the issue of reproductive health, sex is the apex, is the end.
Yep.
Then now the repercussions from there start. But as parents or the community or the society, at what point do we start talking of reproductive health? For example, you have a teenager who has just started the menstrual cycle. Can the fathers be able to talk to their daughters about their health, the issue of menstrual cycle? If it cannot be happening at that time, then that's where challenges start to grow, and we cannot arrest them. Number one. Number two,
Frederick, I hate to cut you short. I think we're going to have, we'll call you back so we can continue with your conversation. You have a couple of points because we want to take a quick break here, and then we'll continue this conversation in the next hour as well. The Nakuru Senator Susan Keheka has joined us, and she'll be explaining this bill in greater detail for all of us to understand exactly what she has in mind when she's proposing this bill. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home at 6 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's take a quick break.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Four minutes to 8 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Joining us now in the room on the hot seat is Nakuru Senator Susan Keheka. Thank you very much for joining us, and good morning.
Good morning to you. I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to a very productive a few minutes, maybe 1 hour, maybe.
Productive, eh? So now your buzzword anyway is productive. Reproductive healthcare, productive conversations.
I see you.
I see. We introduced this bill for a bit, and we talked about some of the highlights, the issue of adolescents and getting healthcare access to healthcare services. There's the issue of the new clause that you've proposed there for abortion, when abortion can be allowed, and many others. And you, of course, know what is has raised controversy around this. But before we go into the controversy for the next 2.5 minutes, just what made you think of this particular bill? What's the need?
Well, I mean, I think what really drove me to come up with this bill is actually, it's quite ironic because it was about helping women or men, or rather couples who are not able to conceive and have children. So I wanted to come up with a bill, have a legislative framework where we could have these IVFs and surrogacy. Because in my role as a representative of the people, over time I have come across a lot of couples who this was not available to them, or even though it's there are no laws that govern it. It's so extremely expensive that only the very wealthy in the society are able to access. So when I initially brought this bill, I realized even though the Constitution is very clear, everybody is entitled to reproductive healthcare, there was no standalone bill or law, rather, for that. So I wanted to plug in a gap that was there. So it's ironic because when I brought up the bill, what I really wanted to do was help those families that were not able to have families. And in our African context, when a woman is not able to conceive or a family are not able to have a baby, then they are looked down upon. It's looked as though it's not a totally...
it's not a complete
unit,
You're stigmatized.
Exactly. Yeah. But now the naysayers and the propagandists have now taken away and called it an abortion bill, which now is about ending life, while really my issue was about bringing life. So that's why I'm saying it's ironic, but we shall get to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a section of that bill that addresses that, and this is about people who are not able to conceive and how they can be assisted into getting children.
Right.
And then now there are these other, shall we call them nyongezas?
Yes.
Some simple branches that have come and they appear to be the ones that are spoiling the original intention.
Yes.
Well, we shall be discussing all those in detail, and going into that, I think we'll start with that from the intention of what you wanted to discuss, and then why you thought to include these other issues about the abortion, about bringing in adolescents, about training them on sex. Why it is
not training them on sex, but we shall come back on that.
See?
Okay, it's already coming out.
Eric,
no, we can't do that.
You see? All right, let's take a break and take a look at traffic, because you're coming to the top of the hour. As we do that, CT Muga, what is today's proverb?
It's from Nigeria. Simple and easy to understand. However far the stream flows, it never forgets its source.
However far it flows, it never forgets where it came from. Okay, interesting one. This is the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and also online on www.spicefm.co.ke and also on KTN Home. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
All right, heavy traffic this morning from Kapa to Cabanas, unfortunately, right from the SGR turnoff, and then takes us all the way down towards General Motors, and that's going to be that way for some time. In the red is what it looks like, and down further right around the Nyayo Stadium roundabout on Hulu Highway, then leading towards the CBD. This stretches all across to Westlands, and it's moving very, very slowly at this point. We also see a bit of a clog up on Jogo Road, heading towards the City Stadium roundabout, and then into the CBD in that direction, or towards industrial area. Lunga Road is open today and likely to have some heightened traffic in industrial area as well. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what's happening there. Thika Road is the normal traffic that we see. It's stretched back towards Safari Park Hotel, but that moves forward, and it's not a bumper-to-bumper situation as it were, but it's moving slowly all the same. We'll take a look at what it looks like in other parts of the country, but for now around the NMS, it looks, or rather the NMA, looks pretty good. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see, and if we can help to keep it moving this Tuesday morning, it'll be great.
Traffic.
2.5 minutes after 8 o'clock. Thank you very much for being right here. This is Spice FM 94.4 Nairobi, 87.9 Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7. We broadcast from here to the world on www.spicefm.co.ke. We are also live streaming on social media, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and KTN Home. In the room with us this morning is Nakuru Senator Susan Keheka. She is the author of the Reproductive Healthcare Bill 2019. It has been called very many other things. The abortion bill, the what else bill? Everything else bill.
Everything but reproductive
But what
health.
it was supposed to be, reproductive health. And you just give us an introduction of what you were thinking when you were drafting this bill initially. And you were thinking of the assisted reproduction bit. What's the issue there?
You find that there are many couples, and in fact, I was talking to some, as we continued with our public participation, I was talking to some of the religious leaders, and I was saying, I'm sure if you could be candid, you would be able to tell us that thousands upon thousands of couples come to you for prayers when they are unable to conceive, or they are unable to carry, a lady is unable to carry a pregnancy, or maybe the whatever the medical issues may be. It could be the lady, and sometimes it could also be the gentleman. But what we have found, as I was saying, is within our African context or our African culture, when two people come together, get married, and are unable, maybe 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, to conceive, then it becomes problematic. So a lot of the women then came to me, and they were like, it leads to such low self-esteem because you're looked down upon, or you are looked at as not being a real woman, whatever that may mean. And you know, looking back in the Bible, it's not a new concept. It's nothing new here. You know, when we talk about Abraham and Sarah, we know there was an issue. I mean, she had to wait until she was 90 years old to be able to conceive. So we are saying that the Lord has helped us with get technology and science going. And we use that for even as we do as when we are ill, we go to the hospitals and we get treated. So it's nothing really here unique or new. It's just advancement in science and technology that has helped. So why not use that in our context and then be able to help these people be able to conceive and have children? And when you look around in this Nairobi, actually, there is a lot of fertility clinics. That's what they call them. But there's not a single law in the books that governs how they carry out these services. And by the way, I'm now coming to learn a lot of the services are actually accessed by foreigners and others because our local women are not able to access affordably. So that is what really, that was what made me bring about this bill. However, you did ask me, why then did you throw in all the other things? Now, like I said, there is no law, there is no standalone law on reproductive health in the country. So then I decided to come up with a comprehensive law on it based on what we already have in different laws, in the Constitution of Kenya, in the Health Act, in different educational policies. So pull all that together, because really you can't talk about reproductive health and not talk about, say, family planning, for example. You can't talk about reproductive health and not maybe include the little abortion that's already the law of the land. You know, those sorts of things. So what I did then was, instead of just coming up with a law on surrogacy, that's where maybe the couple's eggs are fertile, but the lady cannot carry to full pregnancy. Maybe they keep miscarrying. And I think you've heard of these stories.
Yep.
Then instead of just having that, why not come up with a very comprehensive law that covers all the different areas maybe you can think of, hopefully, that, and it's not just ladies, it's women, men, girls and boys are able to then access. And that really was what drove me to do this, to put it together. But within no time, the hula baloo, okay, we've also seen a rise in teenage pregnancies. So I know some people say that, okay, what a coincidence that the minute you had your bill, we started seeing numbers rising and inflated. And I said, well, that comes from a point of misinformation. Because you have to understand, our bills, by the time we are getting to this stage of second reading, it's been almost a year in the process, in the pipeline. So this bill was actually published back in November of 2019. We had the first reading in the Senate in February of 2019. We had public participation, which is required under the Constitution, in March of 2020. Sorry, the first reading was February of 2020.
This year,
public participation happened, where a lot of the stakeholders that we are now hearing also came and brought their views and their proposals. That was back in March of 2020. We then had the second reading, which is sort of one of the major steps in the bill. It went through the process, it went to the Senate, and the senators voted for it. That was the second reading back in June. And now we were going for the third reading when something, I don't know, somebody just woke up somewhere and decided, wait a minute.
Somebody realized what you were doing.
Exactly. Well, I wasn't hidden. It was on the floor of the house. Yeah.
It touches on so many things, Senator Keka. It touches on, what information parents, religious leaders want out there for their youth or for younger people. We know that, teenage pregnancy, we would want to pretend that it has not been there, but it has been there for very many years. We've seen a spike because of current conditions or whatever that may be. Now, what would be the intention of this bill in terms of information spreading for these young people?
Now, and I'll read it right off the bill, because when sometimes I hear the misinformation, one, I'm wondering 2 or 3 things must be happening. One, either people are discussing the bill without having the advantage of having read it, one, or there is a deliberate misinformation. Sometimes maybe because I'm a politician, there has to be some maybe political agenda or propaganda put in there. So there's so many things going on. But one, I would want to ask anybody and everybody who can, please get a copy of the bill and just read it. You can even get me on my social media and I forward to people. That's what I do all day long, just so that I can get it out there. But what addresses, first, let me be very, very clear. My bill does not, as a solution to teen pregnancies, does not then recommend abortion, because I think that's what I'm hearing. I've seen some people on TV pushing that or saying that's what the bill is saying. No. What my bill recommends for us to be able to maybe help, even if not all of them, some of them, so that we can avoid getting to that very far point of pregnancy. We need to help before pregnancy, rather. So what my bill does, in Part 7 of my bill, Clause 32, on the adolescent-friendly reproductive health care services, my bill says age-appropriate, meaning a 10-year, you're probably not going to talk to a 10-year-old the same way you will talk to a 16-year-old. Because a 16-year-old, when we were 16, we knew a little more than when we were 12, and vice versa. So my bill recommends mentorship programs. For example, yourself, you would be a very good mentor to some of the girls out there. So maybe, and I was going to say, and I'm sure you already are. So we encourage that. And if each of us can do a little, even if you are just a mentor to one girl, it would make the world of a difference, And then myself to one, yourself to, just like that. I think that would cause a chain reaction that would be very helpful for our girls. Because some of the times when I speak to them, they don't have anybody to talk to or to look up to, or they just have their peers, which sometimes could be problematic. So mentorship programs, spiritual and moral guidance. One, first of all, I am a Christian, first of all. Let's get that out of the way. Because some people act like you can't be a politician and a Christian. By the way, we are both. And most of us are both. And we have Muslims and other other different religions. But I want you to understand that the context of this bill also takes into account our religious background. So here I put spiritual and moral guidance, counseling on abstinence. We are telling our girls, wait, just wait. There will be time for that. Do your education, get to 18, 21, then maybe engage in those things. But for now, just wait, abstinence. Consequences of unsafe abortion, because it's happening. So we are trying to say in the bill, we offer counseling on if you go ahead and go down that route, you could die. Those are the consequences that could happen. And I know a lot of people felt we should not have had counseling on unsafe abortion, but maybe on abortion. And I was like, that is why we have public participation. I don't feel very strongly about it. I could change it to consequences on abortion. Because really my intention is I want us to not get to the abortion. Let them be so cancelled before that they have abstained or they have taken care of themselves, so that we are now not talking about abortion, so that we don't get there. It really is about life.
In addition, that's where the issue comes up. The word unsafe. Right? If we're talking about unsafe, then you'll also have to say because they are safe abortions.
And we'll get to that because the Constitution of Kenya, Article 26, gives exceptions to the right to life. So there is times where abortion is accepted. It's the law of the land,
Yep.
where maybe the life of the mother is in danger. So there are those exceptions, and I do want to take that away from it because it is in the Constitution. The people of Kenya passed it. However, like I said, I am not stuck on unsafe. For me, if that would make the bill more acceptable, then so be it. Let's have counseling on. Let's tell these girls. We have seen, I think we saw on the Sonko rescue team like 2 days ago, some fetuses that were being collected somewhere. The other day in Nairobi River when it was being. So it's happening.
Yep.
So these girls need to understand, we don't want you to get to that point, but we are going to have to salvage them before we get there. Okay, counseling on sexually transmitted infections and HIV AIDS. I mean, those are things we should really be counseling our children on.
Yep.
Maybe they don't understand that those things are out there. Right. So I thought that was important. In addition to that, counseling on substance and drug abuse. And by the way, you see these, all those that I have already spoken about. By the way, it's nothing new. I'm not a genius. I didn't come up with them. They already exist in different policies within the government. So it's just I'm bringing them together in this legal framework. In addition to that, we thought it was important to also have training in livelihood and life skills. Because some of our youths, maybe that is what they need to be able to be busy and not engaging in these things. Vocational training as well. And also such other health services the cabinet secretary shall determine. So, and I know there was a lot of heat as well on that because people felt, well, what if the cabinet secretary came up one day and just inserted something that's unacceptable that was not part of this?
Is it the wording of it?
What the wording?
Yes.
Maybe perhaps, and that's what I'm saying. But we're having a discussion, and that's what should happen. Because also people need to realize before the cabinet secretary can come up with any regulations, any policy, and any of that, the law requires they must come back to you, the people.
Yep.
They must have public participation. And if you say no, then they're not gonna. So it's not something they can just wake up and sleep up there and just chill
But
out.
you see, with that phrase, what came to my mind and why people would react to it is they would imagine exactly that the cabinet secretary has a dream and then the following morning allows the country to enjoy the benefits of this dream.
Yeah.
Perhaps if the cabinet secretary, upon the advice of his health, whatever, reproductive experts, you see, if there is no clear indication that whatever the cabinet secretary is saying is upon the advice, you see, many people may think, well, it's obvious. It's obvious to me. It's obvious to you. But not many people understand that these statements that the cabinet secretary makes are actually based on a lot of advice that he has received from a lot of people.
And that's why I'm coming back and saying, one, by the way, after the second reading, which is what we've already gone through, as we speak right now, it's at the committee stage, which means those are the views we get. And really, probably this is what should be happening on all laws that are being made in this country, where we can hear from so many different stakeholders and be able to use that to make the bill better. But I also want you to understand, the cabinet secretary cannot just wake up and put his dream on paper in there, insert it in there. They have to do public participation. They have to come back out to the stakeholders.
And there are other safeguards in law and the Constitution to ensure that the cabinet secretary
doesn't.
But I also hear what you're saying. Right.
Is it public knowledge?
And I think that's what we are doing now.
Now.
We need to start now educating our people or making sure civic education is necessary. So because it's not, like you're saying, I really think it's not public knowledge. People don't know that you can't just wake up.
But do something like that. People actually don't know. But Susan, why do you think?
Sorry, before I finish that, just one last thing.
Yes.
In addition to that, one very, very important point I think is important. Clause 33, which is the following clause, states that in the provision of adolescent-friendly reproductive healthcare services, a healthcare, now on all those things that I've read, a healthcare provider shall obtain parental consent. So you are not cancelling my kid on abstinence if I have not given permission for you to do so.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because I know people are saying, oh, okay, so now you want our 10-year-olds out. No. You as a parent will be involved because you must give consent for that to happen. Yes. So there's a role of the parent as well.
Why do you think all of this? I mean, because, like you say, public participation taken into consideration. Why do you believe this has touched such a raw nerve with the uproar that you saw then coming out of this?
Because I think, and maybe I'm wrong, and I said again, there was misinformation from the word go. The first pressers that we saw, really, I even wondered, did they have a different copy of the reproductive health care bill than the word that I have in the Senate. Because maybe, we do have some very smart kids out there. Maybe they had doctored it out there in the social media sphere, and maybe they were reacting to something. Because a lot of what we had really, and I had some meetings with a few of them later, and I say, can you point out to me where in my bill whatever you are referring to would be? And they are like, okay, we didn't read it.
Who do you think sparked that particular
I don't
flame?
know.
Which group of people?
I don't know. Let me just say.
I would place it at the doorstep of our religious organizations.
For the religious organizations, I think they generally mean well, but sometimes they are misinformed.
There is a saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
True.
You see, look, if we just read that 32, just the way it is written, it sounds okay. And it sounds okay because it is not introducing anything new. It is basically just bringing in information that we already know, what all these things the church is already doing. The church does counseling on all these matters. Religious organizations do counseling on all these matters. And this is where now your aerial goes up. Because you wonder, so why would this legislator just pick what is obvious, put it here? So where is the hidden clause? So where is the detail? The devil is always in the detail.
And I think that's what you're being conditioned to think, that there is something beyond what is in the bill. And I said to somebody, if then you say that, we can then argue that about anything. Then we can say anything has a hidden agenda. And like you said, you picked something out and you're like, maybe the wording there should be changed. And that's the conversation we should be having. If there is something that they're uncomfortable with, because you rightly put it, everything here, by the way, and that's why I said it's not rocket science. I'm not a genius.
Madam
It's
Senator.
stuff I have pulled out. 1 minute. If you look at the ones on counseling on sexually transmitted infections and HIV/AIDS, that already exists in Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health Policy of 2015. And as well as the NACADA policies and all that, yeah?
Yep.
There is also the Education Policy on HIV and AIDS of 2013. So when we look at a lot of these things, like you said, it's not you posed a good question. Why then am I putting it here if it already exists in different places? Because it's already, like we said, that's just a policy. It's not a law that is in one place where if I'm a teenager and I need this, or a parent of a teenager and I need my teenager to get this, what really are what are they able to access? What's out there? And when you say the church is doing that, and I commend the church for doing that, and we want them to continue doing that, what about those teenagers who maybe are not going to church or are not comfortable talking to their pastor about those issues, because let's also be honest and talk about it freely. There are some, I wasn't able to talk to my mother about these things. I don't know, maybe you were.
Well, no, now, maybe.
Maybe now.
Forget about it.
But
We're not having a conversation on this.
On this,
at
exactly.
18 years old.
Exactly.
No,
or even at 16, So I think it's necessary that we become alive to what is happening. And I want to be very categorical. There is nothing hidden. What you're seeing is what you're getting. But I'm also saying where people feel strongly, maybe this wording, like we said on the unsafe,
right,
we'll take it out. No big deal. I would rather we carry as many of you along and have a proper Reproductive Health Care Act than not have anything at all.
Are there sections of this law? You see, this is one small section that's talking about adolescents. And it goes ahead and prescribes what the national government and the county government should do is ensure that these children have access to all this counseling and information. And then there are other parts of the law that deal with other matters. For example, they talk about promoting sexuality. They talk about, it's going to discuss abortion and discussing abortion for a bit. Do you think this is where those who are against this bill are saying, all right, yeah, you have mentioned very nice things here about the adolescents. But if we look at it in totality, the other parts of the law are not saying this shall be exclusive to adults, but it's a person shall. And this is where the issue of what they are talking about, this bill is promoting sex for pleasure.
Can I first ask you to point out?
If we start teaching our children that
I think he's talking about perception
sex is for pleasure,
yes,
this is
fact,
wrong.
Perception.
Okay, but I would want to...
Where would they get that from?
You know what? I cannot talk to you or explain to you why a person would think the way they want. Or the way they are thinking. Because I'm not in their mind.
I can actually help you there.
But 1 minute. However, I think, like I said, it's the way it was framed initially. And you know what? I always say, when you want to kill a dog, you give it a bad name. Okay? So this bill, there were those who are hell-bent on just killing it from the word go. And what would be the best way to kill it? Just give it a bad name. Just come up with things that are insane, basically. First of all, in my bill, the only parts that refer or give these services to adolescents is that Part 7, Section 32 that we just read.
Yeah.
However, like I said, it does not exist in a vacuum. Part of the other parts that you're talking about, where maybe people felt like I should have said an adult and instead of saying every person is able. I am also going with what is in the Constitution, and I'm going to read it for you. Under Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya, it states every person has the right to the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to healthcare services, including reproductive healthcare. You see, so the Constitution already sets that out. So when we come, and I know where you're going, and I want to demystify that.
I don't even know where I'm going.
Remember, you asked me that I have to think where, and I'm trying to think where you're going.
Yes.
Anyway, because I wondered to myself, why would whoever it was that I saw on TV talking about, I'm saying 10-year-olds can be able to have sex, where the hell would they get that from? Because for sure it's not in the bill.
But Senator, they're having it anyway, and this is
no. But that's not in my bill. Let's be clear.
Senator,
I understand.
It's not in your bill.
It doesn't have to be in the
your
bill.
bill isn't even in contention here. Believe me.
It's not that. But look at the perceptions around all of this right now. And this is where I think the meat of it is. And this is why I'm coming from, to say that unfortunately, we are dealing with situations where people actually don't want to take cognizance of the reality that is on the ground. These things are happening anyway. As painful as it is to say, because yes, I come in contact with 8, 9, 10-year-olds who are engaging in sexual activity. It is happening as we speak. There are 9-year-olds who are pregnant. There are 10-year-olds who are pregnant.
Madam Senator,
it's happening as we speak.
Would you say that the lived experience of most Kenyans are, one, a complete trust in their political leaders? That's one. Two, an open-mindedness where sexual matters are concerned.
Okay. You finished. Sorry.
Yes, I have
very good question. No, because I think you had asked that.
Yes.
I sort of hadn't answered. You were saying, why is it such a big deal?
So raw? Yeah.
And already, like you said, most of these are already the law. So what is this that is already, what is leading to this hula baloo? One, like you said, and you've said it in other words, we don't want to talk about sexual.
Madam Senator, ordinarily, we as Africans don't discuss sex.
Right.
Okay?
Well, I was trying to say it that way. I think you said it
Don't
best.
go even into the law, the bill, the constitution. Most people don't really care what
But is
the
it happening,
says.
or do Africans not have sex?
Hey,
How did we get here?
I don't know.
What are we talking about?
the thing is,
you don't discuss everything you do.
No,
So
and
But
also
and here we are not even discussing sex. We are just talking about reproductive health care.
Actually, that's really the point. We are discussing sex.
Okay.
You cannot talk of reproduction without sex being at the back of your mind. So what you hear is, and this is good because you then get to understand how different people perceive sex. For the longest time, I still do in the field of research. And the greatest hindrance to any reproductive health matters, HIV, AIDS, we found out was not the individual who sought the help, but the healthcare giver. Because they brought their mindset and their understanding and their beliefs and the perception to them to work.
Yep.
Now, this is what you're hearing.
Now, the senator needs to respond to those two questions. Because you're the one who asked the questions.
Yes.
Let's
he
take
was
a
doing
break.
well at also answering them.
I need to give the senator a break.
26 minutes after 8 o'clock, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with this conversation. This is the Reproductive Healthcare Bill 2019 discussion. A lot of contention there's this, and we don't understand why.
All right, still cloudy, overcast conditions in Nairobi this morning at 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 12. Taking a look then into Njeri, where it's also overcast at 13 degrees, highs of 19 and lows of 13, with a chance of showers in the afternoon. In Nakuru, it's cloudy at 14 degrees, highs of 20 and lows of 13, also with a chance of rain in a short while. All right, taking a look then into Eldoret, 14 degrees and partly cloudy conditions, highs of 18 and lows of 12, with thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon. 20 degrees and mostly cloudy in Kisumu, and the heavens will open up into rain later with highs of 24 and lows of 18. Kakamega is mostly cloudy this morning at 17 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 16, with mostly cloudy conditions and a chance of rain later as well. Let's take a look into the coastal towns at 24 degrees, partly cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 27 and lows of 23, with a chance of rain later. Malindi, partly cloudy conditions at 25 degrees. We'll see a high of 27 and lows of 24. Outside of Kenya, in Kampala, it's 19 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 23 and lows of 18, with showers for later parts of the day. Dar es Salaam is mostly cloudy at 24 degrees. It will remain that way for most of the day. Highs of 29 and lows of 21. And in Joburg, still rather frosty this morning. 7 degrees, highs of 20 and lows of 3 today. And finally for now in Lagos, 24 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 23, with a bit of a shower in the afternoon. Streets. It looks like Mombasa Road is still going to hold the most of the traffic for most parts of this morning. We'll see that until around Cabanas and a little bit further ahead, bumper-to-bumper situation still continues to be the order of the day. On Thika Road, getting into the CBD, not too painful, but moving slowly. Other parts of the city from Gong Road to Langata Road, and also coming out of Westlands, moving slow, but it is all right. Okay, so let's tell the truth about Thika Road. It's crazy. Bumper-to-bumper situation all the way from Muthaiga and into the CBD. It's moving very, very slowly, way past Survey. And Wayaki Way as well. The jam starts at Gitaru to Udhiro Junction and then right past ABC. So it's moving very, very slowly this morning. So if you're in those spots, it's going to take you some time to get into the city, but and out as well. But you'll get there in good time. Not to forget, you can get in touch with us, Spice of MKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. It seems to be a bit of a headache right now, but it'll smooth out in good time.
It's 8:30. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation of Spice FM and KTN Home. We have in studio with us Susan Kireka. She is the Senator from Okoh County, and we're discussing a bill that she's sponsored to the Senate, and this is the Reproductive Healthcare Bill. It's right now in the committee stage before it goes to the final third reading, and it's either accepted or rejected. However, we are at the stage where we have seen a lot of reaction, especially from religious leaders. The evangelical Christians have come up and they've said they oppose various aspects of this bill. One, it seems to be promoting sex amongst young people. And also the Muslim cleric have also come out and they have opposed a number of things about it, including some provisions on pornography. But we shall get into those questions. Before we do that, not pornography, sorry.
Whoa.
No, it's because somebody had talked about pornography in the calls. It's provisions on abortion.
Shock us now, won't you?
Jesus Christ. There we go.
No, there was that caller who referred to this magazine called True Love and a Drum, and he related it to pornography at an earlier time.
There was actually a caller from
Cliffy.
No, the other guy who had talked about yesterday. He was giving out some condoms to young people, Masiga in Chuka,
and the young people,
and he found them
watching,
consuming pornography and pornographic content. Anyway, that's not it. Two questions that you had asked. One is about people and their trust for political leaders.
I call it their lived experience with the politicians.
Number two,
and then sex.
Sex is not something we discuss.
Right. Absolutely. Let me begin with that of the political leaders. I think, and I might not be wrong, and I'm sorry to all my colleagues listening, the world over. It's not specific to Kenya.
Okay.
It seems just politicians are not very
Trustworthy,
very liked, I suppose, yeah? Believable, maybe. Perhaps maybe we've said this and done this, I don't know. But however, I also say with a rider there and with humility, we are also a reflection of you. Because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. So we are a reflection of the people who elect us. What are you trying to say now?
We are saying that there's a silent treaty we had here and you're breaking it.
Yeah.
Okay, sour.
Go on.
So it's unfortunate. On that one, I will accept. Sometimes as leaders,
would you be so kind as to relate this to the Kenyan politician? Okay. We thank you for the world view. Now, Kenyan.
I mean, so what I'm saying is Kenya is not unique. Politicians are not necessarily the most liked persons. Our job is hard sometimes.
The politician playing her trade well.
No, I'm just saying,
the question. But
okay.
She's the lawyer, she's the politician.
But, and maybe it's with good reason. And that's why I say I wouldn't also be too hard on you all, because maybe it's with good reasons. Because maybe sometimes we've said this, preached water and drank wine, or, or vice versa, whatever. So, but don't also throw away the baby with the bathwater. So it may be a politician's role also is legislative. So unless we also, as much as you may not like us, we are the ones who make...
It doesn't actually, it's trust.
Trust, as much as you don't trust.
I may like you, but I don't trust you.
Oh, and that's fair.
It goes down to the intention.
Intention, maybe.
Like we were saying earlier, so you may have come up with this and you have really sugar-coated it so well. But then, and we have seen this before, especially in Kenyan politics, that bills are sponsored by interest groups, not just Kenya, it's global. So what interest group is it that is pushing this bill?
Can I tell you something? Categorically, on air, now that I have the opportunity, nobody but Susan Kihika came up with this bill. Nobody is sponsoring me, because I have heard that, again, it's back to if you want to kill a dog, you just give it a bad name. I have had that thrown out there.
Yep.
But I want to be categorical. Nobody is sponsoring me. No one has sponsored me, and I have not gotten a penny from anybody. So this is, and then you could say that about any bills. We have thousands of bills any year going through the system. It is easy to say that just to make it appear as though I'm carrying somebody's agenda. And I did tell you, I told you at the beginning, I started with these IVF and surrogacy things because of issues with our couples. And I also challenged even the religious leaders. Are they not praying for many families who have been unable to have children?
It's a reality.
It is a reality.
We are living with. So
sometimes I also say, and sometimes I back to the Bible, I think I'm an Esther. I think I am made for a time such as this. This was not a bill that somebody who has a soft skin would be able to do from what I have heard, from the harassment, from the blatant lies, from the propaganda and everything. But at the same time, it may not be very like like an ice cream with a cherry on top, kind of soft, nice looking package here bill. It is one of those harder ones, but with a very intentional purpose, because we have our families, not just now on the IVF and surrogacy, on this reproductive health, on this family planning, for example, on these teenage or teen pregnancies issues that we are seeing, and having something that addresses those issues. So yes, it is easier because in our African context, we don't talk about sex, like you said, and reproductive health.
Actually, I asked the question, and I'm waiting for you to respond.
That's where I'm going now.
Okay. Thank you.
It is easier to not even have this sort of a bill because already in our African context, this is so taboo or it's so uncomfortable. Yet, I want to say it's the reality. We do need reproductive health care. It's actually guaranteed in the Constitution. Girls do have their monthly periods every month. People, if they have, I'm getting shy now. If people have sex, they also lead to pregnancies. So these are the realities. We may not want to talk about it, but it is the reality. And I say you're already blushing. But that is the conversation that needs to be had. My bill does not, by the way, in any way, shape or form, promote any underage sex. In fact, first, by training, I'm a lawyer. Second, I am big on when somebody had the nerve to talk about, I think a couple of years ago, that we should lower the age of consent from 18 to, I think, 16. I was one of the ones who very strongly came out and opposed that. In fact, I wish we could raise it to 21. We just can't. So let there not be, no, 18, 18 by our law, 18 is when now you are an adult. So let us not also infringe on the rights of the 19 or the 20-year-olds. But that is the direction I would go. I'm a mother of 2 girls. And so when we talk about the adolescent services here, they're specified in my bill. You may think of all those things out there. You may want to say, okay, maybe she's saying family planning for everyone. But the rights, the access, the services that will be available to adolescents are very specified. They're specified, okay?
Madam Senator,
City, let's take a break, a short one, because I want to hear from Erica Aloch, who's been holding on the line. I think she wants to ask Madam Senator a question. Erica, good morning.
Let's listen, yes.
Good morning.
Yep.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I'll just make it brief. I have 2 questions. Senator Kihika, first of all, how many schools have you personally, schools, universities, whatever, have you personally gone to educate these kids on your bill and what it is you're trying to say? We're not talking about these political propagandas or saying I'm doing community work. On a personal effort, how many schools and universities have you actually gone to since this bill was passed? And the other one is, of course, I appreciate what it is you're trying to do with your bill, but as you've already pointed out, these are not new things. These are things that churches have always talked about. Schools also have these same regulations and guidelines for us. So what are you doing that is different that will make this message get through? Because there's nothing new. So is it just to have a bill so that you can say you have a bill? Because these are things that exist. So what are you doing that is different that will actually, send the message home?
Thank you, Erica.
Do I respond first?
Yes.
Or you're taking another one?
Okay,
sorry, what's that? Erica.
Good
morning, Erica, and thank you for those questions. I think it's one, but with a few others in there. One, I have not personally gone to any schools or universities because I have done what the law requires when you come up with a bill, which is advertised in the national newspapers for a public participation, which we did back in March. It was in the Standard or the Nation, and it advertised, and a lot of the people who were concerned or who had opinions or memorandas came and presented that there, which is what now goes to the committee, which is what they're considering right now. Because some would say, remove this, add this, don't word this way, put it this way. That's what we are doing right now. So personally, I have not gone to schools or universities to educate them on this, because really that is not the intention here. The intention here is to do it in the proper way that the law requires me to do it. Because if then I had to visit every school and every university, then I'm sure that would
time
and everything else. So that time would not permit that. However, we do now have a lot of the younger people participating in a lot of the discussions I'm having, be it online, be it in small meetings, in smaller meetings. Some have also been set up by other people who I don't even know, but I just see them online and all that sort of stuff. So I know they're in the conversation. And like she said, she also talked about why am I doing this? Well, it's already being taught. Some of this is already being done by the religious leaders, as well as being in the school guidelines and all those sorts of things. One, like I said, not necessarily every child is able to access or hear this information from the religious leaders. One, they just may not be going to church, or maybe they are not, they don't go to church, or maybe they're just not comfortable speaking with their my mother's priest. I may not be very comfortable because I do not know if later they will discuss that with my mother. Whatever, I don't know.
But
I'm
counseling
just saying,
is happening
in many areas. So we want to encourage, and that's why we also put in the bill that spiritual and moral guidance. So we want to encourage the church to do that, because nobody alone, and the clergy and the Muslims, nobody alone can do it, but if it's done in different spaces, then it really helps. And those who are not comfortable going through that in the church may be comfortable going through it in school or with the healthcare professional, that sort of stuff.
So what about this bill, Senator, is going to make this thing work this time? Like Erica was saying, well, we've had this thing for a long time.
Yeah, in fact, let me finish her last question. She said it's already there are regulations and guidelines. Why do I need to have a bill just to have a bill? Let me just let Erica know. Regulations and guidelines do not equal an act of parliament. They do not equal the law of the land, so to speak. And a guideline or a regulation can just be pulled. One morning, they can just wake up and pull it and say this is no longer what we now have or whatever, what we shall be going with.
Yeah.
But to change a law, you can't just wake up and just change the law. You either have to go to court and make it and get it made unconstitutional or illegal, whatever, or you have to go back to parliament and get an amendment, that sort of thing. So it's difficult. And so that's why we want to have a law, just like we have the Constitution, just like we have the Healthcare Act, just like we have many other laws. We want to have the Reproductive Healthcare Act if it passes, I hope.
Okay. I've got to ask this question, and this is because it's one of the things that you're getting pushback on. Termination of pregnancy.
Sure.
The Constitution has talked about when abortion can happen. And those are two instances. You've introduced a third. And this third one is, let me just read the bill itself.
Yeah, please.
26.1, a pregnancy may be terminated by a trained health professional where, in the opinion of the trained health professional, A, there is need for emergency treatment, B, the pregnancy would endanger the life or health of the mother, or C, there exists a substantial risk that the fetus would suffer from a severe physical or mental abnormality that is incompatible with life outside the womb. C.
Sure. Let's talk about C, right?
C is where now the issue arises.
First of all, like we said, when we first come up with the bill, and what you're reading is the initial draft of what is the bill, like as I came up with.
Yep.
But over time, it will get some things changed a bit, some things deleted even, and that sort of stuff. And I want to explain to you why even I proposed we delete C. But I want to explain to you why C was on the bill initially. Now, if you look at the Constitution, Article 2.6 of the Constitution is very clear. It talks about that's the supremacy of the Constitution. Any treaty or convention ratified by Kenya shall form part of the law of Kenya under this Constitution, right? So treaties out there that have been ratified then become part of our law. Now, I do quite a bit in the arena of women rights and all those sorts of things, yeah? So under that, there is a convention which Kenya ratified back in 1984. And that convention is the CEDAW. And CEDAW is really the Convention on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And that is where it allows for termination if like now the language of C, where there exists a substantial risk that the fetus would suffer from a severe physical or mental abnormality that is incompatible with life outside of the womb. Those are the ones who
is contained in the CEDAW.
In the CEDAW, right. However, after we had drafted and we were going through this now because I have also lawyers within Senate who help with this sort of research and everything.
Yeah.
We also came across another convention, another treaty, which Kenya has also ratified. And that is the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And this was against, just like it says, Convention on Rights Against Persons with Disabilities. So when that CRPD when I came now to learn of the CRPD, I knew of the CEDAW, but I was not aware of the CRPD. Then we thought, in light of the conflict of these two international treaties, we reconsidered as a secretariat. We reconsidered and even recommended to the committee that we shall be moving to delete C, just because there's a conflict in the conventions. However, just to be clear, it was not just on disability, but it was where the doctor had determined this child cannot live outside the womb. And that happens sometimes. And I wish we had a doctor in the panels here. But in light of the conflict in international conventions, then I moved to delete part C. So now on the part on termination of pregnancy, it will mirror to the comma, to the dot, what the Article 26 of the Constitution gives as far as the exception to the right to life, which is abortion is not permitted unless, in the opinion of a trained health professional, there is need for emergency treatment or the life or the health of the mother is in danger. So, and that is also what is in the Health Act. So that is what we shall have in the bill.
There's also this other part, 27.1, that a trained health professional who has a Conscientious.
I also can't say
This
that
one.
word.
It's in the oath, and you keep.
I kept
swear
saying
conscientiously.
Eric, why are you wading into my
Conscientious.
trust?
Yeah? Consensus.
We are the ones who have license
consensus
to mix and mingle our S and SHs.
So,
Yes.
a trained health professional who has a conscientious objection to the termination of a pregnancy as envisaged under this act shall, except in case of emergency treatment, refer the pregnant woman to a trained health professional who is willing to provide this service. Now, what service would that be? We have already said that if, in the opinion of this trained health professional, the life of there's emergency, it requires an emergency, or the life or health of the mother is in danger, why would a doctor then be given leeway to feel, in my conscience, abortion is not something that I do, and then you must send this woman to somebody else?
And by the way, that's a good one that you have raised, because it's one, like we've talked about, with different clauses, with different sections, different clauses, different stakeholders have an issue with that. And this is one which now we are trying to reward. I'm glad you have rewarded so that the doctors feel comfortable, because I have had a lot of the doctors complain and felt that this could open them up for criminal prosecution. So let me explain to you what the reasoning was behind this clause. We felt that after being told that there are times in this country, or there are times when a woman's life is in danger, but the doctor feels they do not believe and cannot therefore perform that termination. Then we felt we are weighing here, it's whether to save a life
or to go with the
doctor's rights, and we recognized, and I recognize the rights of the doctor to have to also go with his conscience, but at the same time we have a mother's life that is in danger. So we said then, fine, we shall respect your right to your conscience. However, her life is also important. So then what you need to do is refer her to person B, who does not have that same objection, so that her life can be saved. So that was the reasoning behind it. But it's still one of the ones that we are having to maybe redraft, because the doctors feel that the way it's phrased, especially with part 2, where if a trained professional does not refer, as specified under subsection 1, commits an offense. Because now we had instances where maybe a mother dies. The mother dies because the doctor felt very strongly, I do not believe I can terminate this pregnancy. Fine. Then I'm saying I'm respecting your right to your conscience. Your right that is guaranteed under the Constitution. However, this woman's life now must also be important.
So you have an obligation.
To then refer. Because we also, I'm sure they know who does what. And many women, by the way, die while giving birth, or even in the course of pregnancy.
Okay. Senator Kika, I think it's very important, even as we look at the nitty-gritty around, wording and, public participation and all of this, what would it look like? Should this bill pass, right? And then it becomes part of law. What would it look like? What would be then the provisions made for reproductive health care in this country? Sometimes it may look a little bit better when we really understand how things then would actually change, or who would be protected, and what things then people would have access to.
Paint us a picture of Nirvana.
Perfect.
Let's take a break, because we'd like to release our audience on KTN Home. KTN Home, thank you very much for watching. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's broadcasting on Spice FM. We'll be back on KTN Home tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. to 8 o'clock. But this conversation continues on Spice FM around the country and around the world. Good morning. It's 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. 7 minutes to 9 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. This conversation continues in the room this morning. CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, Eric Latiff, and Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika. She is the sponsor of the...
hot, man.
Okay. Reproductive Healthcare Bill 2019. Okay?
Yes.
Before we went into this break, Nduh had asked you, just paint us the picture.
Oh, yes.
This bill passes.
Yes.
What do we expect to see?
I hope it passes, and eventually I'm hopeful that when the committee has done what... Oh, okay. When the committee has done what it needs to do in the next few weeks or so, a part of which is they will also be doing just another round of public participations.
Right.
Just because, like you said, so much people seem to not be knowing really what is in the bill, but also us wanting to carry as many people along as possible, the religious organizations, the religious leaders, our teenagers, our mothers, our fathers, our sisters and brothers. We just want to carry everybody along, and the professionals as well. So once that is done and we have a bill, it will still have to go through the same process again in the National Assembly, where they have to do the first reading, the second reading, public participation, third reading, and then now it becomes a bill. So I am hopeful that we shall get to that point. And when that happens, you asked, what is it that we are going to see when this happens? One, beginning with my what I was passionate about here, we shall now have county governments as well as national governments having being able to have we're not asking them to build new clinics or new hospitals, but having more resources towards reproductive health, so that when our women, our men, our boys and girls need to access these things, then they are more accessible, because right now even maybe where to go is a problem.
Right.
And now with the government also adding more resources, the services also become cheaper, because then they are available now maybe at the county hospitals or whatever. One of the things, like I'd said, like the IVF and surrogacy, which are extremely expensive right now, beyond the affordability for most of those who really need that help right now. With this bill passing, and with that passing, then we see the county government hospitals also probably being able to help with that sort of service. And with that, then the cost again comes down, and so a lot of our people are able to access, to have access to affordable and good quality reproductive healthcare services. If the bill passes, then we also are able to have our adolescent-friendly, age-appropriate services, where they are able to access this with parental consent, but where they are able to get those counselings that we talked about, those vocational trainings, those spiritual and moral guidance, those sorts of things. So I think it will streamline what is the reproductive health arena, so to speak. Yes, like we have had, there's guidelines, there's policies, there's word here and there, there's the Constitution as well, there's the Healthcare Act, but now we shall have a standalone act, a standalone law, where if you need this, then you can go to the law and be able to figure out what are your rights, what are you able to access, what is out there, and what can you get. So it will make it easier. It will make it easier, and especially for our women. It's for everybody, reproductive health care is for everybody, but the women and girls seem predominantly to be disadvantaged right now as things stand.
And as we come back to the original idea for the bill, the assisted reproduction, what's the picture going to look like, really, in terms of even just awareness, creation, in terms of everything in that whole sphere of people in their communities? Because we've got to look at, yes, these services may be provided, but how are we going to change people's perceptions towards this?
Well, like we said, like for right now, it's not even, there's no law to that governs that. So for example, if I am unable to carry a pregnancy and I'm a commissioning parent and I commission her, says she's my cousin, and I'm like, okay, please help me carry this pregnancy, and you're able to do it. Right now, because there's no law, you can also just have the baby and say, I'm going to keep the baby, and there's nothing I can do. Or halfway through, I can just tell you know what, forget about it, I changed my mind. So we need a framework that will be able to regulate this, because it is happening, by the way. And that is the one thing that I also want you to get. It is not that it's not happening in Kenya. It is actually happening, but it's only available to the rich.
It's an elitist.
Yeah, it's an elitist thing, exactly. So now we'll be able to have subsidized or maybe much cheaper services, and our people will also, with the law being there also, it's not probably going to be as hidden as it is right now, where there is no law. So there will be a bit more access. And one of the other bigger things we didn't talk about, you realize right now you can go to the hospital and a doctor can sterilize you, and nothing happens. So the part of that is also banning that unless you have consented to that, even if you are a mad woman, so to speak, with the word loosely used, and I apologize, there's probably a better word for that. Because that's what some of the times they say, they're like, oh, okay, let's sterilize her, whatever.
Yeah.
No, then you can't just do that, because these are human rights. So that's already happening right now. So we need to be able to outlaw that unless there is consent. And I'm asking that myself, just asking, versus you as a doctor just getting in there and doing it, because it's really crazy.
Whose consent will be sought? The consent of the person, for example, if we're talking about somebody with a mental disability?
Then whoever the guardian is, because obviously there is a guardian. Yeah, but you can't just go in there as a doctor and just decide to do it.
Make a decision.
Or I have had a baby, you just go in there and tie my tubes or whatever. Do whatever you need to do without my consent. You sterilize me without my consent. Yeah.
Senator Susan Keheka, thank you very much for coming and giving us this kind of very open and honest, candid conversation. It's very interesting that we can discuss for a whole hour stuff that is important to the country.
True.
And not just tanga kieleweke.
Oh.
No, we're not
he
going
had to
there.
spoil it. You had to spoil it.
I was just saying.
Oh no!
Just putting it out there.
Whenever people hear that there's a politician who's going to a
They
media
think
house,
that.
they think,
And that's why I
okay,
really
it's just gonna
appreciate
be-
it. And I came here panting because I ran down the road to make sure I was here for this
there you
conversation.
go.
I appreciate
Very
you all.
good.
Yeah.
So listen to today's proverb from CT Muga.
Thank you.
However far the stream flows, it never forgets its source. Since we're with a politician, it doesn't matter how long you've been a politician, you must always remember who gets you there. It is the wananchi.
Deep. It is deep.
And so your interest must always, first and foremost, be that of the wananchi.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Asante sana.
And thank you very much, and I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The conversation continues. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation at 9 o'clock.
All right, what are we looking at on Mombasa Road this morning? It looks like it's quite chock-a-blocked, and we have bumper-to-bumper traffic all the way from the SGR moving down towards Cabanas. Unfortunately, it's going to take some time to get out of here. Same thing on Thika Road this morning. It's looking quite crazy, guys. As you get to the CBD via the Global Cinema roundabout, it's going to take a little minute to get out of there. And coming out of Westlands, all the way from Udhiru to the Westlands roundabout, also going to take some time. So we're looking at traffic peppered with some patience, absolutely necessary this morning. Spice of MKE, that's how you can get in touch with us on Twitter. Let us know what it is that you see. It's what we're always asking. Try to keep it moving for some people. Thank you so very much for giving us that information as soon as you get it, and we will keep you informed.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation.
Continues
This
at 2.5
is a talk
minutes
radio
after 9
experience
o'clock.
like
This
no
is
other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and
Nduh Okoh.
elevated
We are
conversations.
broadcasting
The
on
Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep,
We're also
controversial.
broadcasting
In the
on
room, we
Spice FM,
have
Facebook,
CT
YouTube,
Muga,
and
researcher,
Twitter, as well as all over
academic,
the country.
seasoned
In Malindi,
political
we're on
observer,
97.7.
a fountain of
In
wisdom in these
90.9.
politically uncertain
Eldoret,
times.
96.7.
Nduh
Nakuru,
Okoh,
96.0.
Nigerian by birth,
102.5.
Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist,
And
a
of course,
truth
Nairobi
seeker
is
and believer in
94.4.
people power, and
Now let's talk about
Eric Latiff. Agent
the plight
provocateur,
of,
the man
people
in the
living
chair,
with disabilities.
seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up,
This is
not down.
the forgotten impact.
This
We've
is
had
the
bits and
Situation
pieces of
Room,
this
the
conversation,
only
where we
way
talk
to
about
start your
people
day.
who are living with disability and what is it that is expected of them. People have even called in here and said, you know what? So they say keep your physical distance. They say that you do not touch surfaces. They say that you shall be able to access this and such a place. But all these conversations, they never come down and say, so for the persons with disabilities, this is what exactly we have in place so that we can make it easier for them to do that. Let's talk to a disability rights activist now, Wanja Maina, and she is with us in the studio. Thank you very much for joining us, Wanja.
Asante sana.
Welcome to the Situation Room. That's the hot seat.
Aha.
But
Feels hot.
Really
Feels hot,
already?
doesn't it?
Well, because the person who was sitting here a few minutes ago left it hot.
All right.
Voila.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Wanja, you're a blogger and a rights activist.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good morning, Kenya. I would say I'm a blogger because I write bits and pieces. I would say I'm a disability rights activist because I have a disability. And over time, I've carved a niche and created a voice for myself and for my peers. Yeah.
By doing what?
The usual...
What does this voice say?
The voice is saying that there's no one who is voiceless. The voice is saying that we are tired of this narrative where people are told you are voiceless. We are speaking on behalf. So the voice is just saying, we are here. We want to be in public spaces. We want to have a very balanced narrative on media. Speaking of a balanced narrative on media, I've been seeing some sort of stories where when people are talking about COVID and people with disabilities, it's from a very charitable case where politicians
almost condescending,
sympathetic.
Politicians taking maize flowers and taking photos with people. And for some of us, we feel strongly that it will be better if we have some of our members in the county COVID committees where people are making decisions, where people are talking about distribution of resources and PPEs. So those are some of our politics.
You've dived right into it. So actually, let's just go there. So we have all these committees. We have the National Emergency Response Committee. We've got the COVID-19 Task Force. We've got at the county level, we have all these committees that are dealing with COVID. In how many of those committees are persons with disabilities directly represented?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. I'd be lying if I know of the number, but at the Community Health Committee here in the Ministry of Health, I am a member, but it was not out of the initiative of the ministry. It was actually on my personal initiative to go and look for them and say, here are some of our issues. And as this COVID-19 is evolving, no one understands it very well. This is the time people are trying to put a finger on it. I would want to believe that not many people are in those committees, but I don't have the figure at the top of my head. But certainly we can see that even the fact that counties were ill-prepared from the beginning, and even the fact that people on the ground are talking about being left behind, certainly the number is underwhelming.
If I may take the discussion perhaps further back and talk about representation at the political front. At the level of MCAs, do you have numbers of people with disabilities who actually have seats as MCAs? Or let's go to Parliament and even let's go to Senate.
So that's a very good question. And I think whenever we are talking about this discussion, I feel like political representation and political goodwill is the beginning of the conversation, because that's where people who decide where the money goes sit. It is sad to note that in 2017, the number of county assemblies with people with disabilities is actually 21. Where else the Constitution and the provision in the Constitution is that every county assembly should have 2 representatives, who is a man and a woman. So if we take 47 times 2, counties should have 47 times 2, that should be 94. So the other counties, which are 26, do not have a representative.
At all?
Not at all. So
What do you think the reason is on why that has not happened?
The usual politics of people swindling others, the usual politics of trying to look at the weakest and elbowing them out. There were a lot of court cases suing everybody around. But then again, it still goes back to the political representation, where leaders of political parties will say our bare minimum is actually this number of people. And actually, it would interest you to know that I'm one of the casualties where I was actually the nominee in Murang'a County Assembly. But maybe that's not where I want to head with this discussion. But I'm saying that for as long as...
No, we would like to hear.
For as long as people will constantly be edged out, the court fatigue and the political processes in Kenya, certainly we need a lot of goodwill from leaders of political parties. And we've seen leaders of political parties making things work. We've seen them deciding how my previous speaker in this hot seat was removed from a very prestigious position in the Senate. So if the political goodwill shows that a lot of changes can happen in 2 days, it means that political leadership can actually say that in my political party.
Right. So, Wanja, here we have an issue. I mean, from the first thing that you said, when we see representation of people living with disabilities in any of these fora, it is that it's almost to the level of tokenism, where they say, okay, let's involve you because, all right, we need to give you a chance. Or where there is representation, it's, handouts that are being given so that, you can... What needs to happen so that it moves from that level of us feeling sympathetic or leaders feeling sorry for and involving to the point whereby there is a seat at the table that is being involved in some serious agitation? What needs to happen to break that?
A lot needs to happen, and I would say some of these processes are actually very structural. It's not merely giving a person a seat at the table. It's actually meaningful participation, listening to their contributions. And let's go back to the topic of COVID-19, for instance. And I've noticed that most leaders in the counties and most leaders in the national government, there has always been assumption that they know what is good for people with disabilities. And that assumption is tragic because when you assume that you can fix these people, some of these solutions do not... let me give you an example. And there's this government project, economic project, where they are saying that it's an economic stimulus package called Kazi Mtaani.
For the youth.
But it is attached to the COVID because they are saying that the youth who have been affected. But the nature of this COVID-19 Kazi Mtaani project is very physically intensive. And I even saw one of the senior government person saying that we are looking at young people who are able-bodied, which in itself tells you that...
It's biased.
It knocks some people out, right?
Certainly, it knocks on people out. And we're also saying that...
But they've also explained and said that this one is looking at this particular specific demographic. Other stimulus packages have looked at other demographics. For example, there's a stimulus package for persons living with disabilities and the elderly.
Well, then it really begs the question, is it that people with disabilities live outside of society that we have to do those packages, especially in some corner? For me, I think if we are to go to the question that she asked me, which was how do we ensure that there is representation in all spheres, it is actually saying that we want them everywhere. So if it's this Kazi Mtaani project, the question is, why would you think of in the conceptualization of that project, why would you think that there are no youth with disabilities who want to engage in the hygiene of their country? I would be interested. So when you say that your stimulus package is only based on the issue of giving you 2,000 shillings as a social protection, I think in itself is like you're assuming, stay in your corner, we shall just come and give you a small handout. What if I want to participate? And I'm not saying that is bad.
Can I ask you, don't you think that a certain element of affirmative action sometimes is necessary? If you are to actually bring this matter from the abysmal state it's at to where there's an element of a level playing field?
Certainly affirmative action is a very good idea, but affirmative action everywhere.
Affirmative action with consultation.
With consultation, certainly. Yes. Affirmative action that is based on not on the assumptions of... And it's all about, and in the previous discussion, there were issues to do a lot with misconceptions. There were issues a lot to do with assumptions. So why would you assume, for instance, that for as long as you are sorted in the social protection aspect, then that is enough? And speaking of that social protection, we also have questions. For instance, we saw that when the president talked about this COVID and there was some money that was released, that's when I saw chiefs and people doing that work, looking for information on people to benefit. Then the question is it that we've never gotten it right with our social protection, that it has to be in the midst of a pandemic, that's when you'll be looking for information and telling people to go to the chief. In any case, even that journey to the chief is a barrier to some people. Their people cannot leave their homes. And the other question is, the money for social protection was meant for people with severe disabilities, which in itself is also very debatable. For instance, I have a disability. It's compared to who that mine will be severe vis-a-vis whose. So those are also questions. And that way we are saying to ensure that we are not all of us complaining in one corner with very little resources.
Well, just socially speaking, do you think Kenyans have actually gotten to a point where they are comfortable with disabilities of any nature?
Maybe when you say Kenyans, you'll be assuming that Kenyans are very, they're homogeneous.
Actually, I'm doing this deliberately. Because socially speaking, you would be amazed that we're really not that different. The manifestations of the things that we hold dear may appear different, but our thinking structure is really not that different. And to ask the question, I'm even including people with disabilities, how they view themselves.
Well, I think I'll still pick it up from the point where Latiff talks about the issue of homogeneous. And for me, I'll say this. Even myself, I think I'm privileged in a way because people are usually packed in many. It's a package. For instance,
segmented even within.
No, it's stereotyped.
No. Where
layered.
Layered is the word actually. Where else I have a disability, I have education. I have university education. That means that there could be a peer of mine who has a disability and is a young woman, but they do not have the privilege of education. So when you talk about Kenyans and if Kenyans are accepting of disabilities, maybe my peers would accept me, not necessarily because I'm too good, but because we are also connecting on the fact that both of us have had university education. So it begs the question, should we... And even then, who decides who should be accepted? I think we need to have standards. I think we need to have bare minimums and say
Actually,
that...
let me tell you why I'm asking the question. This discussion wouldn't be taking place if there wasn't already in existence a very negative bias against people who are presented as having disabilities. Am I right on that score?
You're right. You're very right.
Precisely. Now, this is something that not only has built over time, but has been carried forth over time. If a constitutional requirement, a basic, by law, 2 people with disabilities, 1 male, 1 female, should be in every county, is ignored.
It's ignored, and it also, even the very fact that we know the power that leaders of political party wield, and if they do not look at it as and Kenya as a society is very predatory in nature, and we've had all these very bad things. For instance, I remember when the COVID started, there was food meant to go to the people, and then suddenly half of it went missing. It was all over in the media. Then you're asking, you're stealing food of people who are starving. So the reason why some of us are afraid of some of these people, it's because we know that they can easily take even our own constitutional rights from, because if it's written in the constitution that 2 people should be in the constitutional assembly, and we are not in those assemblies, it means that there's someone who sat down, schemed and said, because I want to take a seat from someone, I'll steal from the weakest. And that's why we actually need a lot of protection. And that is why, for instance, going back to the debate on COVID, and why I was even talking about representation everywhere, we know that realities like education, people with disabilities have very minimal education. The statistics are actually daunting. Imagine that according to UNDP, only 1% of women with disabilities in the South have had literacy, are literate, and the male are at 3%. So that feeds into the fact that not many people with disabilities are in formal, well-paying, well-protected jobs. So when you're talking about the effect of this COVID and the people in the informal sector, we know who is overrepresented there. And then we start issues like packages, and suddenly you are talking about people who are physically and agile and able to do. So
do you know?
Let's take a quick break, please. We want to look at the weather and what's happening in Basra, Iraq. today. 17 minutes after 9, it's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this morning is CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, Eric Latiff, and joining us for this hour is Wanja Maina. She is a blogger and disability rights activist. We are discussing the plight and the forgotten aspect of the persons living with disabilities. What are you talking about? COVID-19. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, let's look at what the weather looks like this morning in Nairobi and certain parts, including Lavingwari this morning. It's mostly cloudy. The fog is quite low. Highs of 18, and we'll see some showers in the afternoon with lows of 12. Looking into Njeri, 15 degrees and cloudy this morning. Highs of 19 and lows of 13. Nakuru is cloudy also at 15 degrees. Highs of 21 and lows of 13. Eldoret is mostly cloudy at 15 degrees. Highs of 18 and lows of 12 with thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon. Kisumu at 21 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 24 and lows of 18. Taking a look then into Kakamega at mostly cloudy conditions at 17 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 16 with a chance of rain in the afternoon. Mombasa is partly cloudy, 24 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 23 with showers later on. And in Malindi, 25 degrees, and partly cloudy conditions, highs of 27 and lows of 21. While we're at it, look at other parts of Wakanda, and in Kampala, 19 degrees and mostly cloudy. 23 degrees, the high, and lows of 19, with showers expected in certain parts. And in Dar es Salaam, 24 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 21. In Johannesburg, it's mostly sunny at 7 degrees. We'll see highs of 20 and lows of 3. Lagos at 24 degrees is partly cloudy. We'll see a sprinkle later on with highs of 29 and lows of 23. Let's take a look in London, where it's clear skies at 13 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Paris, 16 degrees and clear skies, highs of 26 and lows of 13. And in New York, getting round to Tuesday morning, 31 degrees is going to be a hot day. Highs of 34 and lows of 25. And why not? Let's look at Basra. It's mostly sunny on this Tuesday morning in Basra, 41 degrees currently. And it's going to go to a high of 50 and lows of 29.
Well, in the situation room this morning is Wanjamai She's Morgan's rights activist, and we are discussing plight of persons with disabilities during this time of COVID.
I do. You see, when it comes to discrimination, it is clear that people with disabilities are stigmatized, they're discriminated against. But I want to ask, socially, young people are often the focus of police brutality. How do people with disability fare?
Thank you very much for that question. And actually, I'll give you 2 instances when this COVID curfew situation started, where there was a man in Mumias, his name is Zakaria, who is deaf. So he was found, according to the media reports, he was found walking around at around 6:30, 6:40 p.m. He was actually really beaten by the police.
6:30, 6:40 p.m.
6:30, 6:40 p.m. It was in the media. And then there was a guy called Ramadan Juma from Kakamega who was 35. It is interesting to know that he was also a victim of police brutality. And for us, that was a very huge issue of concern, because we are talking about inaccessibility of this COVID and precaution messaging, that a guy who is deaf maybe has no clue that he should be home towards 7 p.m. That was when the curfew was at actually 7 p.m. And it even builds into the question of how accessible is this media reporting and information to people who ordinarily wouldn't understand the standard information that is given. For instance, people are saying that wash your hands, maintain a social distancing. But a parent would be curious to know, this child of mine is dependent on me. So there's a lot of personal care and personal close relationship involved. And I actually raised it with my peers, and I said, maybe we need to modify this information and say, if you have a person who cannot wash themselves, wash yourself first, wash them, and then wash yourself. Those are some of the inclusive messaging we are looking at. Because it is contradictory when you say, avoid this, yet there's a person who actually needs someone to guide them.
That's the only way.
Their hands, And discrimination everywhere. And one would say, you guys like complaining a lot. No, it's not like our forte to complain from morning to evening. It's just that these issues are actually tiring. For instance, let me give you an example of a peer of mine in Kibra. There was a time that the NMS, I don't know who, is it Nairobi County Assembly or NMS, you know how we have this.
Now we don't know which is which.
Who is doing what?
Yeah, part of those two, whom I don't know, but they are NMS and county, they were giving water. You remember when they launched water bozers. So water goes to Kibra constituency. You know the dynamics of Kibra is a very informal kind of a settlement. So when it goes, maybe it stops here, people are coming with jerry cans to be given water. And it's water that is given for free. However, there is a person I know who has 3 children in Kibra, where else the water is given by the government for free, they have to pay someone to go and fetch for them water. And we are also asking, if we are talking about affirmative action, let us have it everywhere. For instance, I'd be curious to know, we have this Nyumba Kumi, the chief, the DCC. I wish they could map the disabled people in their localities and the wards, so that if they are giving water, they can say, to ensure that we are moving on well, let us have maybe the first 20 jerrycans. The
fact of the matter is,
people,
the Nyumba Kumi and the chief already know the persons who are living with disability
they are aware.
in their region.
They do. No.
It's that thing of, just assuming. You assume that water has come, everybody come and get water and go. And this is where we take it back all the way to government and how government is thinking and how government is operating. Because just like you've said, what is so difficult in saying as NMS, we are going to distribute water to people in Kibra, and the first we know so-and-so requires water, just stay at home, we're going to bring you the water. Everybody else come. What is so difficult about that?
Maybe it could be that maybe the people at that top level, even if they have people who have disabilities or people who advise them, they are not able to contextualize inclusion at such a basic level as ensuring that water goes first. And we have seen best practices.
So how did you know the story of this particular person who in Kibra?
I know because I would say I'm a leader, and therefore some of these issues we've been raising. And their best, even the issue of food, actually, you remember there's a time in Kibra there was a stampede. People are saying, we've been told to go to collect food. Standing is a problem. Queuing is a problem. You know the nature of free things in Kenya where people grab each other.
Crowd now
so
even.
You are worried, do I go get food or do I go get injured in that fracas and dynamic? And we're also saying we need to see some orderliness and some sort of thoughtfulness in terms of these cautioning of wananchis. Because as much as we are all Kenyans, there are some Kenyans who are just disadvantaged. And those are some of the issues we are raising. And I would say this. I've seen that there are people who are actually embracing some of our feedback. Let me give, for instance, the National Youth Council. When we raised it with them, they actually had a special distribution of PPEs. They had a special distribution of sanitizers and everything, where they actually told us to map the people and actually give. So we are also saying that we've been saying these things, but we are also saying, is it that people are not listening, the people in positions of power?
It is because that is not their focus.
It is not their priority.
It is not their priority.
Unfortunately. Now, if we want to say going in, which is why I can understand the importance then of having representation at the county level, which is prescribed, right?
Yes.
So if you have that representation and people understand the importance of it, then perhaps you would see a different outcome or a different outcome from what we see today. So unless something is made a priority, unless it is right there at the very top of everything else that they need to, unfortunately, we're going to continue to see the results that we are seeing today, which again, it is quite unfortunate. However, what I wanted to ask you next then is looking at the agitation, because this is all of these are experiences that we are aware that people who sit at the chief level, who sit at the Nyumba Kumi, for example, they are aware of these things. Are they made aware that you are also aware that they are supposed to be doing these things? Is it in their face in terms of, look, we know that this is supposed to be happening? Because it could be all right. We know that they're supposed to be doing that, but we continue to keep quiet about it. So we just let things flow as normal.
On Twitter, I've been seeing people saying, normalize making noise. Normalize maybe putting your profile picture on WhatsApp. Normalize. So I think the people in those decisions, and even this COVID, there is a lot of work that is falling squarely on provincial administration, chiefs, and people in that structure. And in any case, the chief is the representative. Ngaos. The chief is actually the representative of the president in my sub-location.
National Government Administrative Officers.
Ngaos. So maybe one would ask, in the chief's baraza, do they have representation of a person with disabilities? And even if they have, do they listen to them? Because some of the challenges that some of our people face is actually that they feel sometimes they are not taken seriously.
Yes.
So even when you're having a point, one would wonder, you people require a lot. You put burdens.
Yes, you do. You see, this is not, don't wait for them to take you seriously. Make sure they take you seriously.
So you're saying there's fatigue as well. You fought this, you fought once, you fought twice, and you feel, really, I need to live my life as well.
Yeah, it's tiring, and that is...
Take a break. Take a
And
break.
come back.
Get your breath back. Look for allies.
Yeah.
And then come back. To understand this, look at the fight that women in this country have fought to have a voice. Just look at it. I'm not talking about any other country. This one here. That fight hasn't ended. They're still fighting. To the point where it's not the boy child who's disadvantaged. But they have fought. These things don't come to you easy. Because the resources you're talking about, you're fighting for the same resources as people who don't have your disability. Yes.
Let's take a break at 28 minutes to 10 o'clock. We want to look at what's happening on the roads, and then this conversation continues. We are speaking with Wanja Maina. She's a blogger and a disability rights activist.
All right, Langata Road heading towards the city centre, whether you choose to use Bagavi Way or then go towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, there's a bit of a traffic hold up there. But it shouldn't be too bad as you get to the roundabout at Timor. And as you then split, you should be fine going Bagavi Way and then joining with Valley Road or Ngong Road down the line. Other parts, still a bit of a hold up coming in from Thika Road, getting into the CBD, but it shouldn't be too bad from now, getting out of traffic hour in just a short while. It looks clogged, but you'll get out of it soon enough. Ngong Road is absolutely clear to and from the CBD all the way to Ngong Town. No traffic this morning, so that's great. Outer Ring is just starting to build up now for some reason. So if you're using that area, you need to know that there's a traffic hold up there. The eastern and southern bypasses have been holding up beautifully for the last couple of days, hoping it remains that way. So still stuck. It shouldn't take you too long to get out of it. In case you see something that we should know about, again, Spice FM, KE on Twitter.
As we continue the talk with the Wanja Maina and the disability rights activists, we'll be opening up the phone line so you can participate in this conversation as well. Shortly, we are looking at what's happening to the persons living with disabilities in these COVID-19 times. You've just told us police brutality. Somebody who has hearing impairment, and then police would come and assume that this person is unanyata, kichwa ngumu, and you're beaten. And you just basically do not understand what's going on.
You can't even hear what the person is telling you.
Yeah, you can't even hear what the person is telling you. Then we're talking about also provision of, basics like food and such, where somebody is still expected to come and struggle with everybody else on a queue with the able-bodied people. The Kazi Mtaani, you've raised an issue with it, and you're saying, so Kazi Mtaani is looking for able-bodied young men and women. What happens to the young men and women living with disabilities? Are we sure that they are getting, even if we're talking about that there is the fund for persons with disabilities, are we sure that they are covered? What if they want to contribute to
the hygiene of
their country and their community? What do they do? So there is all this conversation, even from the point of the composition of these bodies, composition of the Emergency Response Committee, composition of the task force, composition of the county committees that are dealing with COVID-19. If you do not have representation from persons with disabilities, how are you ever going to think about the persons with disabilities?
That's right.
It goes into all those. I'm sure you have many other examples of what's happening now to persons with disabilities. Just paint the picture for us. Various other aspects.
The other unique aspects that we are raising and we have issues with them is actually education. It's like this year is actually over in terms of the academic calendars, and our children will have to start again next year. For children with disabilities and people with disabilities, and as you heard, is actually education is golden. And when people are talking about my child will not be able to, they will repeat. For the realities on the ground is that for children with disability, education is actually protection.
Yep.
These children are face danger at home, in the estate, everywhere they're walking. So when they're in school, they might not have the ability based on their unique challenges to get an A, but they are protected from predators. We've had very sad cases. You've heard of them. The
the caregivers, sadly, who are usually mothers, I don't know where the fathers usually go after at some point. The caregivers need to take them to school for them to be cared there, for them to go and do some work. So here is a child who is actually at home up to next year. So it begs the question, first, this child has a unique education need. And this, the nature of it, if you look at this special education, it's a very repetitive, it's a routine. So I don't know, when we reset hours for next year in January, it's because we know that they left it at CBC class 4. So others, education means activities of daily living,
basically
like
be going back,
brushing their teeth. So the regression and anzatena from ground zero. And teachers of special education have raised actually issues like, for instance, how sure are we, where will we start with these children? Their curriculum is not as it's stipulated. Their curriculum is, were you able to put yellow and black in one box? That's progress for us. Are you able to brush yourself and move and maybe do as you have, based on their unique needs? So even as we are talking about education and as we are debating about the education calendar, I don't know if it's going to change from what we were told about January. We should also ask ourselves, you're saying that our children have laptops, they have access to the technology. Where we are working on the ground, not many people have that privilege of internet and ability to Zoom their education. Fine, you are saying that. But you're also saying, watch it on the TV, the people will be doing the education. But the question is, this is specialized, unique, individualized education. So are we actually saying that for the ministry and for the education, for us, a brilliant child is the one who is able to pass the exam and do the usual KCP and KCSE? So those are some of the issues. And I think maybe even someone like CS Magoha, who is passionate, and I've seen him make statements around learners with disabilities. These are actually debates, and maybe we can even ask, education for actually some of these children ties with issues like therapy, where you finish education, they go and fix your legs and so on. Other issues that we are seeing a lot is gender-based violence. As much as we are talking about people with disabilities, and we agreed with City Muga earlier that people are not homogeneous, we're also looking at the unique challenges that face women and girls. That violence could be, the gender-based violence as we know it, intimate partner violence. We also have violence from caregivers, because these mothers are tired, they are fatigued, they have to take care.
Patience has run out.
The patience has really run out. So we are also asking, they're saying call 1195, call, the government is going to do, it's like a number to call and report. But maybe assuming, and we can go further and further and ask, how accessible are our safe houses that meet women and girls who have been violated? Other issues that people with disabilities are worried about so much is that
just take a pause on that, because John is on the line. John calling in from Nyandarua. John, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you guys?
We're fine, thank you.
Okay. Now, I'm happy that you have this lady in the studio today. Because you're doing a very nice job for the disabled people who have always been disadvantaged. Now, my concern has to do with this COVID issue regarding these people. There was a fund that was established by the government to assist these people during this COVID era. And as I had told you earlier, I have a daughter who is blind, who became blind as a result of meningitis. He has not received a single penny for the said COVID funds.
She has registered with the...
can I get?
Has she registered? Was there any form of registration required?
Exactly. The assistant chief asked for their name. We forwarded them twice indeed.
Okay.
And I have a neighbor whose child was born with a total disability. The parent, the child has also never received anything during this COVID era here in Nyandarua. So I'm wondering whether these funds were for Nairobi people and Nyandarua became an exceptional.
Good questions to ask.
Yes. Secondly, those right people for the disabled, like that lady, they should not just concentrate their affairs in Nairobi. They should be centralized and come to the rural areas. Have records for these people. It is important so that they may have the proper statistics of exactly how many of these people are, their problems, so that when they go to address their problems, they would be in a position to do exactly what is on the ground.
From a point of information.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much, John.
Then there was another issue that we discussed with Eka.
Mm-hmm.
It was very important. That bill might catch some communities by surprise. He said that it's receiving public participation, but the public participation is taking place in Nairobi. There are communities who cannot digest the content of the bill, and they should not be caught by surprise.
Mm.
So it is important that this public participation on that bill be distributed to all communities in the country, because they should be participants of that bill also.
All over the country.
Specifically the elite in Nairobi.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I think that question goes into how Parliament itself has structures for public participation and what that means. Thank you very much, John, and have a good day. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are talking to Wanja Maina. So you've heard what issues he's raising.
Yeah, I've had John's issues that he's raising, and it's building up to harmonization. I've had issues that John from Nyandarua is raising. Nyandarua must be very cold, actually. That's why I went to school. But anyhow, he has talked about data and information. And for me, I think that there's a very big gap. I don't even know if it's a gap or a pothole about data. But it's actually data, but not merely data. Don't say that we have 900. The census people said we have 900,000 people with disabilities in Kenya. Fine, that is just a number. But for that to make sense, for me, I'm looking at what is the distribution in counties? What is the disaggregation in terms of female, male?
That's there.
Well, I didn't see it from the census, but even if it's there, then how that data ties to the people who are doing social protection, because he says that he's registered but he has not received.
Yep.
Maybe that could be the story of another John in
several other people.
It's the story of Johns across the country, and the question that we have asked this in this show many times.
Yeah.
Why, after August, why do we have to ask chiefs to go and register again?
And you remember also how that ties to the Huduma number situation, where we also give
new information. If there's anybody who was born now between August last year and March this year who has physical or any other form of disability, then add onto the database. But the government should already have that database.
Yeah, they should already
John's
have
daughter
it.
should be on the database.
Should be on the database, and they said that is the story of many Johns. So data, information, and making sense of that.
So
those
the challenge
numbers
that he was throwing at you is you activists,
Yeah.
because you have come out and you've said, I'm going to advocate the rights of persons with disabilities. You should do that and go and collect data. Go to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics and say, I'd like to see this breakdown. Challenge them and say, because they already have that breakdown. So what is this? What is the distribution of the persons with disabilities? What disability?
Speaking of Nyandarua, actually, there is no representative in the county assembly of a person with a disability. So that's where maybe the problem starts as we go about activists doing
Everything
that. But then again, also the work of activists, and maybe to what extent it becomes now a responsibility of government. For example, if it's an issue of data and they are the ones who collected, then surely,
yes,
for us, it's just
their
working with the numbers.
It's just like what CT was telling you earlier. So for you to be able to challenge the government, to challenge the people who are in authority, you've got to go to them and tell them, this is what is. This is the information on the ground, and this is what you're doing on the ground. And there's a clear disparity. Otherwise, they keep giving you those answers. We have a fund for persons with disability.
Yes, and people are receiving money on a regular basis, for example.
In fact, I can show you a database here. Just look. And they'll open for you a laptop and show you these people have received money today. Now, if you don't have the number of how many should have received money today, you cannot counter that.
Are we looking at issues now, Wanja, that have cropped up because of the COVID situation, or are we looking at inherent issues that existed even before COVID came about?
COVID has exposed us. It has exposed our health systems and how weak they are. It has exposed how, for instance, education and the inequalities among our children. So these inequalities are actually, people with disabilities are the largest minority in Kenya. So, like, put together, you are the majority of the minority. I know it sounds like a tongue twister, but the majority of the minority.
Yep.
So these issues of inequalities have always been there. the journeys. It's like inequality starts really, for example, when you're not given education. We've talked about the statistics of 1% from the UN. So it means you've started being lagging behind the others, that you shall not transition to higher secondary education, shall not transition to institutions of higher learning, and how that also means that generally you cannot get a better job, you cannot get skilled work, and so on. So inequalities have always been there, but certainly this pandemic has brought now another inequality that is, it's like overturning the new normal, and it has also presented for us an opportunity to also ask our questions. What will we do when we are all caught up in these situations and we are not able, who are our people that need an extra help and an extra push? Speaking of inequalities and our health systems, and that's an issue that we've been seeing, for example, in the US and so on. Some of the people with disabilities, we know that there are people who have underlying health conditions. And I remember a peer of mine actually told me that the peer of mine has a disability that is degenerative and so on. They feel that, as we have seen in the West, where this condition is getting too much, our health systems are pressured, maybe we might get to a point where many people are so sick that some people will be deprioritized and say, these people, this one, her chances of survival are minimal compared to others. So it even gets the question of maybe the right to life, or is it the right to death? The right to life, and who will decide whose life is of more value
important than
vis-a-vis the other. And it will... So we the health systems, the accessibility of those quarantine places. For instance, those quarantine beds, I don't know if people are quarantined in the bed or in a dormitory. Maybe the
double-deckers and all.
The double-deckers and those situations. And at what point will we also have our health professionals understanding that people with disabilities are also susceptible? Because I've noticed that when we started this COVID discussion, people with disabilities were more worried about the socioeconomic impact of the COVID, which is understandable. But let us look at the direct health impact of this COVID. Getting COVID-19 and being unwell, going to a place where there's so much pressure in the isolation or in the hospitals that people decide, you can live longer, so we give you the ventilator vis-a-vis the other. So who will protect people with disabilities, even from the bias of the health professionals? Because
that's a very, very strong point that you raised there. It's a moral dilemma. Well, the Italian healthcare workers had this same kind of issue when they were swamped, and the question was, so who will isolate? And they had to make those judgment calls. And it was moral issue. And you're raising it here by saying, you see, a healthcare worker will look at this person who gets 2 days of leave from their body to salute on a different. Let's see where you're pointing. Let's take a break. 11 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is a situation on the phone lines are still open, 0719. We'll shortly be concluding our conversation today with Wanja Maina. She's a blogger and a disability rights advocate. But we want to hear what you have to say about this. 0719-012-600. Ruben Kigame in Eldoret, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you doing in Eldoret? Baridi?
Yeah. I think we were at about 12 degrees last night. Very, very cold. Well, good conversation you're having there.
Thank you.
I wanted to link what Wanja, very good job she's doing with advocacy, with a bit of what Susan Kihika was talking about. The clause that she indicated would be expunged if possible. And she categorically denied any kind of sponsorship or association with groups that are interested in this whole bill. History tells me that International Planned Parenthood Federation, started by Margaret Sanger, was also very interested in eugenics. In fact, some of her writings portray the conversation as involving the weeding, the getting rid of the weeds in America and leaving a pure breed. And escalate that to Hitler or whoever it is that would have, gained from that kind of rhetoric. I think there is an unspoken concern that I think needs to come to the table, and that is the link between all of that and some of what Wanja is saying. Once the bill, becomes law, we certainly have a concern about possible eugenic type conversations.
Okay, but that particular clause is being deleted from the bill.
Is it a fact?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So let's come to COVID-19. And, I raised this back in March. I write a little bit in social media. I raised the question, how much conversation, how much funding is actually being put to take care of some of what Wanja is talking about.
Right.
But beyond the funds, because you can't just throw money at problems, I think my point is we have inherited a problem. The situation with disability is not new. The problems we are dealing with are not new. It's just that now they have been escalated by the circumstances that we have with COVID-19. And so what we need right now is maybe a lot more action on the part of the government, and not so much policy, because we have enough policy.
If I may just ask,
Yes, it is.
From your reading, I'm sure you encountered the idea that what we know of as eugenics, which was made extremely unpopular by Adolf Hitler, had some
popular
form of
or unpopular?
Unpopular.
Okay.
Unpopular. Because, you see, the thinking behind eugenics was to try to breed out ailments that at that particular time people felt or believed were hereditary. Okay? And it's this eugenics that we now refer to in this modern day and age as genetic engineering.
Yeah.
And it's gaining momentum. The thinking behind it, if you take it in its purest form, was never actually negative. But the practice of it turned out to be otherwise. Would you say that my statement is well balanced?
No, it's not, because you're only looking at the technical or the medical side of things. You're not looking at the social.
What's the social side of things?
The social side of things is that once you grant a technical provision, someone is bound to abuse it. GPS was supposed to help us
navigate better.
Navigate better. But now helps us with drones.
So we shouldn't make any progress because people might turn it on its head.
When the danger is directly, affecting people's lives, City.
Yeah. No. So with the city's concern, my bigger concern would actually be with vaccinations and not even so much the policy.
Okay.
Because we all know, for example, vaccines have mercury and all these dangers. So look at the HPV, vaccine.
I think you're veering, Ruben. You're veering into another conversation.
Okay.
We will have another day. Thank you very much.
It's
City who led you there. Okay. Let's thank you very much for that conversation, for your contribution this morning.
Thank you.
Asante sana. So as we come to conclude the show, what is it that you'd like to see done? We are still fighting COVID-19.
Our big issue is that there are short-term interventions, the usual provision of PPEs, access of the basic hygiene products, ensuring that the ngaos, as you call them, and the people in that provincial administration are actually making sure that people are catered for. If there are people I want to appreciate in absentia because they're not here, but it's the community health workers. I've noticed that they are making efforts. They are trying to do. Community health workers, actually, I would like to say they are like the backbone of our health. They are always willing to learn. They've been asking us, how do we deal with these people? Number two is that I would like also to say that I've seen the Ministry of Health. Our recommendation was to have sign language interpreters, and they embraced it. Nowadays, when the CAS is doing the normally and abnormally updates, he's actually having those people. So our recommendations or issues that we think will make this situation better is harmonization of data. Someone should be very disappointed to know that John in Nyandarua with a child, and he also talked about a child of a friend, is missing out from the right as per the government and many other people. So the people with that data, and it's in your laptops, harmonize it, put it together, and then use it for decision making. Right. Number two, medias are always our allies. They are very good people. In fact, I'm in a media station here. But we're also encouraging the media to also try and have a very balanced narrative because some of these stories are actually contributing to stigmatization. Like one of the media houses, whom I won't name, actually did a story, but they projected people as beggars, and we raised a bit of concern. So when we do a media interview that is balanced, it is contributing to change perceptions in society. It is also contributing to inform the people in decision making.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things. And number three, the people with disabilities and the leaders and the organizations on the ground, to let the people in administration know that they are not merely bystanders. I've seen a lot of efforts. I've seen a lot of organizing, which is something that should be commended. For instance, there's an NGO called Nondo in northern Kenya. They have been doing a lot of organizing around pastoral people and the nature of the pastoral people and how communal they are. And that is one of the things we could embrace. So to the people who hold resources and to the people who hold decision making, we tell them, we are here and we have opinions, but try and embrace our contributions and do not, talk down on us.
Thank you. I think we've come to the end of the show. It's actually already 10.
Okay. Do I have an additional second?
Already
Maybe
10
an
o'clock.
issue?
One final one, yes.
One final one is actually issues to do with inclusive education, inclusive communication, because this COVID is evolving a lot. The other time we were worried about, passing it to people. Now it's like a communal issues to do with the curfews. So we say those people who are formulating this communication, make sure that it's inclusive. It is speaking to people who might not understand it as it were. And just a polite reminder, and earlier we were told a proverb by Ct Muga where he said that the stream and the river, I don't know what he said. And I will say this, in that same Nigerian, the Yorubas are the ones who are famous for these quotes, proverbs. They say that you cannot shave a man in his absence, like his beard in his absence. So we call upon people who are in tables of decision making. Let's make longer tables.
To include you.
Longer tables, many folding chairs and tables, and inclusion, because we know that these are health and it's a socio-economic pandemic. And for us to win, we have to look at our weakest link. And our weakest link is the the majority of the minorities. So I think I will end it at that.
Thank you very much, Wanja. Thank you very much for coming. Now, CT will tell you today's proverb and what it means as we conclude.
However far the stream flows, it never forgets its source.
However far the stream flows, it never forgets its source.
It appears like our public service forgets its source. It even forgets its public.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Good morning. It's 10:10.